Welcome, everybody. The time is 7:09. We apologize for coming back a little bit late. Welcoming everyone back to open session. And at this time, I ask everyone to rise and participate in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll begin tonight by opening the public hearing on the Lyons Township High School District 204 fiscal year 24 amended budget. Director Brian Stachas has some information to share.
Yes, thank you, President Gretsch. Just briefly here, as part of the change in the law in the state of Illinois, I think it's 2 years ago now, when we adopt a budget, we also have to bring forth the fund balances of the most recent time period that we would have. And so before the conclusion of the public hearing, right now I will read out the fund balances for the district as of April 30th of 2024. Of course, we do not have anything for May yet because we've not reconciled those yet. So the education fund, $57,580,667.09. The operations and maintenance fund, $15,536,032.05. The bond and interest fund, $1,811,641.53. The transportation fund, $6,487,604.87. The Social Security Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund, $2,630,094.89. The 60 Fund, which is our site and construction, $25,734,461.10. And finally, our working cash fund, $4,263,173.91.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have anyone wishing to comment on the public hearing? All right, then at this time, I would like to close the public hearing. Can I have a motion to do so?
So moved.
Second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Great, thanks, Brian. All right, next up is public participation. Marilyn, do we have anyone signed up for tonight's first public comment session? We do, all right. So, once again, thank you all for joining. As is the case for all of our meetings, there are two opportunities for the public to share their comments with the Board of Education, one now and one before we adjourn our meeting. For our first public comment session, we'll be listening to comments from those audience members who signed up to speak before the start of our meeting. After we finish our agenda items tonight, we'll open up our second public comment session, and we'll hear comments and feedback from anyone who would like to comment after hearing the board's discussion and information shared this evening. If you would like to participate in the second public comment session, please fill out a form during our meeting and give it to Marilyn Muscolino, who will either be near the door or just outside the room, and will call speakers in the order in which the forms are turned in. The board appreciates and values hearing comments from our community. Please understand that the board does not engage in dialogue or discussion during our meeting. If there is a specific question or comment that requires follow-up, the appropriate administrator will respond at a later time. And finally, each individual addressing the board will have 3 minutes for their comments, and we appreciate your cooperation in keeping to this time limit. In accordance with board policies 230 and 830, we thank you for keeping tonight's meeting respectful and civil for all in attendance. Marilyn, will you please call our first speaker?
Elizabeth Kofi.
Good evening. My name's Elizabeth Coffey, and I'm the parent of Matthew. He is a junior here at LT. I had the pleasure of meeting several of the board members at the meet and greets that were held during the past school year. It was to my benefit that the number of attendees was relatively small at these gatherings because it provided me more time to discuss my favorite topic, which is special education. I very much appreciated your interest and feel that we had productive conversations. These interactions made me realize that it could be helpful to have even more information about special education shared on a regular basis at school board meetings and in other settings at LT. Tonight I thought that we could start with some statistics. That may seem a bit dry, but it's a good way to get a sense of the challenges that students such as my son and other special needs students manage every day. According to the Illinois report card, in the 2023-2024 school year, which is the most recent year, full year of data, LT had 3,787 students. Of that number, 416, or 11%, had individualized education programs, commonly known as IEPs. An IEP is a plan that describes the special education instruction, supports, and services that students with disabilities are legally entitled to receive. The 11% of the LT student population who had IEPs last year qualified for special education services under the following categories: specific learning disability, other health impairment, autism, emotional disability, intellectual disability, speech or language, visual impairment, multiple disabilities, orthopedic impairment, and hearing impairment. Please note that, again, the information available regarding percentages and such is from last year, so I didn't actually include it. I assume it doesn't change drastically from year to year. So that, I wanted to start with the statistics just to give you a broader understanding of the 11% of students who are here and at South Campus every day trying to do their best and get an education like any other student. And while these students with IEPs are unique, of course, we parents of these wonderful children have some commonalities. Perhaps chief amongst them is our need and desire for us to have as much information as we can get. Consequently, additional aspects of the effort to help parents and students to be more informed, in addition to the discussions we had at the meet and greets, is one of them is a Facebook page called Lyons Township High School Special Education Parents, and a tool that we are creating called the Insider's Guide to Lyons Township High School. Regarding the Facebook page, we share as much LT-specific special education details as we can garner from official sources as well as from personal experiences, while also providing information related to activities and supports available locally, regionally, and nationally. A major benefit of the Facebook page is that we are now facilitating connections, I'm almost done, and sharing information with parents from feeder districts who will eventually have students here at LT. And as I mentioned at the meet and greets, it can be a little challenging to get parents engaged through a Facebook page because it's not very personal, and also because special needs parents tend to feel isolated, overwhelmed, and at times flailing, looking for information for their, not just their students, but for special education as a whole. And finally, the Insider's Guide that we are working on began as an effort to help special education students and their families to better navigate Lyons Township High School. But as it turns out, there are others within the population here who are interested in it and will benefit from it. And we are, anyone who wants to help, you are welcome to look us up on Facebook. And I will continue to attend meetings next year to share more information about special ed. And if you ever have questions, please bring them up because we need information as much as we can get. Thank you.
Thank you.
Andrew Johannes.
Good evening, everyone. The end of the school year is upon us. I cannot believe how fast this year went by. Seems like every year it gets faster and faster. We say goodbye to the seniors and wish them luck in their future endeavors. We are very proud of this group of students, and we hope that their time at LT was fulfilling and provided them with a solid foundation to grow from. We also say goodbye to our retirees. The LTA would like to express our gratitude to each retiree for their contribution to LT. They will be missed, and we wish them rest and relaxation as they embark on their next journey. I'd like to thank the members of the PAOC. Their hard work and dedication is greatly appreciated, and they will have a positive impact on the LT community. Congratulations to all spring sports. It's been a busy spring season, and the student athletes have made all of LT proud. Good luck to the team still competing in the state playoffs. Congratulations to the boys water polo team with their state championship, and the girls water polo team finishing third. I'm sure we're going to see more winners by the end of the school year. Finally, thank you to the board for your continued support for students and teachers of LT. LT's greatness starts with your support of student-first initiatives. Thank you again. I'd like to wish everyone a fun and relaxing summer, and I will see everyone in August. So, happy summer.
Thanks so
Thanks,
much.
That concludes our public participation for this section.
All right, great. So then moving on in our agenda items, we will hear from our student rep, Sophia.
Thank you. Happy almost end of the year. It's been a busy month so far with lots of events and accomplishments. For athletics, first of all, congratulations to the boys water polo team for winning state yesterday. Congrats to the boys gymnastics team on placing 4th at state, and to Will Taylor for winning the 2024 Illinois Senior Gymnast Award. Congrats to the girls track team for placing 2nd at the IHSA sectionals. Congrats to girls soccer for winning regionals. Their next game is tomorrow against Hinsdale. Congrats to the girls water polo team for winning 3rd at state. Congrats to boys track for winning 2nd place at the IHSA sectionals, and they qualified for 4 events at state. For activities, many clubs and activities are having their final meetings and celebrating the seniors. Congrats to the FFA club for placing in 4th place at the Envirothon state competition. Baccalaureate was this past weekend, and it featured many student performances and speeches commemorating their time during high school. Yearbook is distributing this year's volume tomorrow. Prom is being held at the Field Museum on Friday. The Eurythmics Dance Company hosted their performance Flourish in the first week of May, and they danced a variety of styles. Orchestra, choir, and band hosted the Spring Festival of Music, where they performed a variety of pieces, and many musicians were named ILMEA 1 All-State Musicians. Many students who participated in the YC2 program throughout the Community Memorial Foundation were celebrated at their last event. French Club visited a French restaurant and is having their last meeting to celebrate seniors. STEM research students presented their research projects at Argonne National Laboratory and listened to other local students' projects. The senior honor ceremony will be hosted tomorrow, where many seniors will be presented with scholarships and other awards for their contributions. Menagerie had their distribution day for their new volume, As If, which is inspired by teen magazines from the 90s and the early 2000s. GEMS is hosting their last meeting, where they're making ice cream, and at their last meeting they hosted an AP study session. Ukrainian Club went on a field trip to the Ukrainian village in Chicago. BPA attended nationals in Chicago. Congrats to Peter K. and Michael P. for placing the top 10 finalists and to the 8 BPA national competitors. Acapella Club hosted a concert last week, and Madrigals hosted their spring concert. Aviation Club and Sailing Club teamed up together to make blankets. And on a final note, I just want to say thank you so much for this opportunity. It's been such a fun experience, and I've learned so much over the past year. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We can't thank you enough for being the eyes and ears for us with the student body. And as we just heard, you came to every meeting with thoughtful and intentional preparation. No small task, because we also know how packed you keep your schedule. So congratulations on your graduation, and we just wish you all the best at Northwestern.
Thank you.
So I'm going to call an audible and do this now.
Sorry.
Superintendent report, but I also want to thank Sophia for all of her work this year. It's really, personally, it's been great getting a chance to know Sophia and all that she's involved in. But professionally, she comes prepared. We meet before every board meeting. And let's not, minimize the fact that for a student, spending their nights here when they're already really busy studying and everything, Sophie, you've done it at a really high level, and we really appreciate everything that you've done this year.
Thank you.
Any other board members want to jump in and talk as well?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tim.
I mean, I just think you guys have said it extremely well. I think we are, to be able to get a day in the life of a high school student at LT, you've been able to give us that imagery and all the information that you shared with us, the successes that our school has. We wouldn't have a lot of that unless we had you here, and we really just appreciate the way that you brought it to us with intention and passion. You will be missed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just would say sentiments, good luck to you, and I'm sure that, I imagine you'll probably find some way to fill the 3.5 hours once a month that you just, plus all the preparation time that it takes to put together such a robust report of everything that's going on at a school this size. So good luck to you, and thank you so much for all you've done for us.
Thank you.
And of course, any successful student has a supportive family. And so Sophia's parents, Bart and Kathleen, are right here in the front row. And we want to thank you for giving us Sophia for the year and working with our board. So thank you guys as well.
Thank you.
And we have a small token for Sophia, so. This is a little gift on behalf of District 204 Board of Education. Congratulations and good luck at Northwestern, right?
Yay, the Wildcats.
Wildcats, yeah.
Sorry, I know I jumped ahead.
No, that's good, that's good. And I think now would be the great time to, I have the pleasure of introducing Sophia's replacement for next year. Emily, if you want to stand up. So Emily Morquecho Cordova will be the student representative to the Board of Education during the 24-25 school year. And Emily is here with her mother, Monica. So Monica, please stand up. So I want to just kind of give a little background here. So Emily is a junior from LaGrange Park. She currently serves on class board, also on Poderosas, which is a Hispanic women empowerment group. She's on Hispanic Leadership Council and Older Adult Connections. And maybe the coolest part about Emily's background is she's the founding member of a club called Connection with a Smile, which is a club that helps the homeless in and around our community. Outside of LT, she volunteers at UChicago Advent Hospital and at the library, and she's the daughter of Monica Cordova. So Emily, congratulations, and we are so excited to work with you during next year as well.
Wonderful. Thank you. Welcome. We're excited to have you join us at the table.
Thank you so much. This is an immense opportunity. I mean, I have some big shoes to fill. Sophia's so amazing. So thank you so much, and I look forward to working with you all.
Oh, thank you.
In the fall.
We have no doubt that you're going to succeed. You were very impressive, and your dedication and your energy really showed during the interview, and we are very more than excited and thrilled to have you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Great. Wonderful. All right, well, now on to your superintendent's report. So just keep on going.
Yeah, I have a few things. So I'll just start with a brief reminder that in your packet tonight, you'll find a memo that provides the monthly FOIA report, which since all the FOIAs that we've received since our last meeting in April, so don't forget about that. We are really looking forward to celebrating the LT class of 2024 throughout the next 10 days. And in fact, we started this yesterday with the baccalaureate reflection ceremony that Sophia mentioned. Tomorrow night, we'll host the senior honors ceremony. Friday, we'll host senior prom. And then, of course, the celebration culminates with the class of 2024 commencement ceremony next Wednesday, May 29th, weather permitting, of course. At the April board meeting, the board did approve the senior honors declaration, but tonight I'd like to ask President Gretsch to read the resolution, which thus formally recognizes this amazing class of 2024.
I am more than happy to do that. Everything related to this graduation, though, I might need a minute.
A little emotional, right?
I have somebody walking across that stage, too, so I'm just trying to get through one day at a time. Whereas Lyons Township High School District 204 places great importance on the academic achievement and co-curricular involvement of its students throughout their 4 years of high school, and whereas the senior students of the class of 2024 are required to successfully meet the academic standards and expectations of Lyons Township High School District 204 and earn no less than 23 Carnegie units of credit in order to receive a high school diploma. And whereas the senior students in the class of 2024 have distinguished themselves in activities, athletics, and scholarship throughout their 4 years of high school. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education of Lyons Township High School District 204, Cook County, State of Illinois, proudly acknowledges these outstanding students for their commitment, integrity, scholarship, and contributions to the school's traditions, and declares Tuesday, May 21st, 2024, as Senior Scholarship Day so that the Lyons Township High School community may so honor the class of 2024 individually and collectively. All right.
Congratulations to the class of 2024. And again, we are looking forward to the next week and a half to celebrate this awesome group of students. Moving on to the LTCC consensus. So as part of my report this evening, Shelley Taylor, Chair of the LT Community Advisory Council, is here to present a summary of the feedback from our last meeting, which was on May 1st. The LTCAC hosted a fourth quarter meeting to discuss the topic of school safety. This included sharing all the components of our comprehensive approach to safety, including preparedness, positive relationships, and shared responsibility. And as always, we were able to get some really good feedback from the tables. And I'm happy to have Shelley here to present some highlights. Shelley, you just missed Sophia talking about Will. So Shelley's son was Will, who won a pretty awesome award in gymnastics last weekend. So congratulations.
Congratulations.
Family, because it was two Taylors on that trophy now.
There we go. Love it. Love it.
Thank you. And thanks for making time to hear these notes. This was a really important topic. The group all took it very seriously. We had an outstanding attendance again. We always think there's something going on that day that's going to keep people from showing up, and they always show up. They're a really dedicated group of volunteers. So we asked a few questions, as we usually do after the presentation. I also want to note that Dr. Terrell and Dr. Owens and Dr. Rowe and Dr. Waterman really took the time. They always do, but really took the time at this one to make the rounds to the tables. There were a lot of questions on this topic. And I think it was really helpful for everyone to get additional context, to get those questions answered right there in the moment. Sometimes that might come later, and I think this was a good time that we had the coverage to be able to do that, so we appreciated that. We asked, reflecting on the three main elements of the system of school safety, which are preparedness, positive relationships, and a culture of belonging and shared responsibility. What aspects were surprising and what might need more explanation for greater understanding community-wide? One of the main points I think that stood out with everyone was that focus on positive relationships and how important that is, and understanding the connection that that has and that sense of belonging has to creating that culture of safety and hopefully preventing incidents from happening. A recommendation was to give a similar presentation to the community. And to my point earlier, I would say I would recommend that if that's done, to be very thoughtful about the data that's presented in the context, because you won't necessarily have the opportunity you had in that group. And we saw a lot of data, and it was very drilled down, and I think it brought the focus really in to very specific, limited incidents, and getting that put back into perspective, I think, is really important. It was also brought up a focus on, while a lot of the systems and tactics and programs that we were talking about are focusing on dealing with difficult behaviors and problematic behaviors or dangerous behaviors, that when there are victims in this case, there's a lot of concern that there's also equal weight put into focusing on those victims and making sure that they get assistance. And it was really stuck out to me, one of the students, because we have students who participate with this group, if you didn't know that. One of the students spoke about the importance for students to know what the resources are and for students to know what their own limitations are so that they're ready and able and comfortable if they have a friend or an acquaintance who is in a crisis, that they know that maybe they aren't the ones to help them and that they know how to help them get what they need and get to the right people. And I really appreciated hearing that from a student and recognizing that. We also asked about opportunities for connections, activities, and events that could be added at LT for more opportunity. This came up in another session that we did as well, probably about extracurriculars. We talked about how overwhelming the beginning of the year can be, and especially for first-year students. And it was suggested that maybe we have another activity fair mid-year and have another opportunity once students have gotten settled into their year, have a handle on their schedule, maybe now they're a little more open to some opportunities that seemed like too much at the beginning of the year. And then similar to that, you know, relying on counselors and teachers to really help identify students who are not particularly engaged, and help them match to activities that might be a good match for them. Another fun community idea was to designate specific sporting events to promote as community events and really welcome the community in. Probably not homecoming or a whiteout or a blackout game. And then the last question was about what information regarding the implementation of restorative practices and interventions. Did you go over this when you were introducing? You didn't get into it.
No.
This was a particular new program focusing on, I'm not going to use the right terminology, but more extreme cases where there might have been an out-of-school suspension in the past, and now there's an opportunity in school where those students can have access to more resources. So the question was about, you know, what will be important to share with the community. Again, this was a place where members had a lot of questions about what types of behaviors would qualify for this type of an intervention, how frequent they happen, what's the percentage of students that we're talking about. So we would want that to be super clear to the community. And this is where the PR around all of the good progress and good things that happen at the school becomes really important so that things are kept in balance. Again, there was some talk about also sharing with the community what supports are in place for victims of these behaviors and ensuring that, you know, again, the balance is there between the attention for the victims who are in need of support after the fact, as well as attention to helping the students with the poor behaviors correct their actions and do better. That was my summary.
All right.
That was my last
Yes.
CAC meeting. I'm graduating as well.
Congratulations.
I don't think Will's let me walk on stage with him.
No. Have you sit in the stands.
Right, right.
Yeah, he's not letting me give a speech. I don't know. But it's been a real pleasure. I've been involved with the CAC, I think, for 5 or 6 years, and chair for a couple of years. So it's a really, really great thing that the school does, and I know it will continue. I know it's well supported, but it means a lot to the people who come. Hopefully we'll continue to get more people coming. Anyone who's here who hasn't ever come to them, I recommend that you try it out. It's faculty and students, student parents, and community members who aren't necessarily parents of students that come together. So there's a wide range of perspectives, and you learn a lot about what's happening at the school. So it's a great opportunity, and I'm passing the torch responsibly.
I need to just take that video of what you just said and show with the
Right.
community. That's what we're trying to get more people. That was the best advertisement that could possibly happen. So.
Yeah, we need the people who participate advertising it, because
Yeah.
I think people
Yeah.
keep coming back, so.
Continue to
they get
grow it, and hopefully we'll keep growing it. So you're not going to get away that easy. We have a little gift of appreciation as well. Shelley?
Well, thank you all, everyone who's
Thanks, Shelley.
presented over the times, and everyone who's listened to me.
Very much appreciated.
So again, on behalf of the Board of Education, Shelley did this for 2 years, so obviously helped coordinate the meetings at the meetings, but also would come to the board meetings and present the table consensus. So we really appreciate all that you've done for LTCAC.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's such a critical touch point for all of us to have the LTCAC. And a big thing. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So as we always say, all of the slide deck, the materials, the feedback from the LTCAC are all housed on our public website, so anyone can go look at the materials. And as Shelley talked about, we're always looking for new members, so please join if you're interested. Okay, moving along. My last item is obviously we're very fortunate to be at a place like LT that supports student travel. We are fortunate to have student groups go overseas quite a bit, and we thought for this May meeting we'd like to highlight a group of students that actually went to Costa Rica over spring break. this was a trip. I mean, this is how these trips get approved, but this was approved over a year ago. And then obviously the trip just happened a month or two ago. And they had reached out to us about a month ago and said, hey, we'd love to share with the board appreciation, but also some information about what they learned when they went to Costa Rica. So with that, I'm going to first introduce Ms. Patel, who's going to, I think, lead it and introduce her students. So welcome, Angie.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us. I guess in being here, one thing that I know you see tons of things go across your table, and then maybe you don't get to see the outcome. But I've been working a long time, and Ms. Arrigo has been working with me a long time in trying to get something like this to come to fruition for science. And so really, I wanted to come here and say thank you from the bottom of my heart. And it was a very special trip that we worked really hard to make happen. And without you guys approving it, obviously we would not have gone there. So I truly and honestly thank you for allowing that to happen. And I can't tell you how awesome these LT kids did. It's really nerve-wracking to take kids and you're in the airport and the parents leave, and then you get on the plane and you're in another country and you're like, does everyone have their passport? Yes, we got their passport. Do you still have your passport? Do you still have your passport? And hope that they come back with us. So it was really, but then when we got there and how they did, like, represented LT to like a T. They were perfect. It was hard, it was difficult, but they pushed through and they did it, I mean, with the blue and gold that they are, right? They showed that. So I'm gonna let them, can they all come up here?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'd like them to come up and introduce themselves, and then a couple of them are gonna talk to you. And if you wanna ask them any questions, by all means.
And we've got the slide deck to run.
Ooh, and you got the slide deck to run too. Should they do the slide deck first, or should you guys talk first? Slide deck first, okay, they would like the slide deck first. Okay.
I think we have there we go.
It's animated, yes. I think you have to click through. Yeah. And then there's a video at the end. So that's when we first got to Costa Rica. Dogs were everywhere, lots of animals everywhere. This is on a trip to get to the Pequario Reserve. You had to take a boat, and you could not leave unless they took you on a boat. Right. Some of the landscape. The beach is where we did the census. You can see that beach in there. This was on our reserve where we were. And then they have a video for you. So part of the stuff that we did scientifically that they're going to tell you about, we could not take any pictures of because of the data that and the research that they were doing. And it was between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. is when we were doing a lot of our research. So they're going to talk to you a little bit about that. Do you guys all want to introduce yourselves?
I'm from George Angus. I'm Matthew Beckett. I'm Charlie DeCurry.
I'm Cecilia Delgado.
Mia McEwen.
I'm Lily Grove.
Marilyn Fagan.
I'm Emma Schultz.
Kate Polomsky.
Catherine Valeka.
Anya Varkes.
And Annette Rico.
So I know a little bit of personal background for me. I've wanted to go into marine biology since I was like a little kid. So when Patel told us about the chance to go on this trip, immediately it was like just a super cool opportunity that I would get, because she said, oh yeah, like we'll get to handle sea turtles like hands-on, which is just something you obviously can't do because they're protected. And it was also my first time out of the country, so I'd be lying if I didn't, admit that I was a little bit nervous to go on the trip. And Ms. Patel's not wrong, it was definitely a lot of times pretty difficult, very strict diet of rice and beans. A nauseating point at sometimes. Very hot, no AC, there's, whatever. But at least for me, it was a really just a unique and an indescribable experience and feeling to get to not only sit there and what we would do is, at least for the turtle censusing, we would walk along the beach at night, wait for turtles to come up on the beach, and then put bags underneath, like in the holes that they dig to collect the eggs, which we would then bring back to a little like hatchery area. And getting to do that, measure the turtles, and not only you get to like see these literal dinosaurs like face first, but also know that something that we're doing is helping conservation of animals while learning in the process was definitely something that I don't think you can get in many other places, and was an indescribable experience, at least it was for me.
All right, hi. I'd like to share a quick story about something that happened on the trip. It started before the trip. My mom was great with helping me pack, and she bought me a bunch of liquid IVs to take because obviously you could get dehydrated very easily in the jungle. And I was like, okay, whatever. I didn't think much about it. We get in the van on the way to the hotel on the first night, and our guide is like, guys, you need to drink water. You need to drink water. And I'm like, yeah, like I know that. Like the jungle ain't got nothing on me. I'm fine. You can see where this is going. 2 days in. We're 2 days in. We go on a hike in the morning. It's so hot. You could feel how thick the air is with humidity. It was brutal. And all of a sudden, I just start to feel really sick. And that was it for the rest of the day. I had to go back to the cabin. It was rough. But I would just like to say thank you to Patel and Eriko, and also to the guides and the people that went with, because they were very supportive and understanding. Even though I was very dumb, they were very understanding, and they helped me get through it, and I was better by the next day. And we just had an amazing experience. And like George said, to be able to see those turtles it made all of it pay off. All the pain that we all went through at different times during the trip, it made it pay off, because these animals are so rare, and most people won't ever get to see them in their life. And to literally hold a bag of their eggs, and they're so endangered, and to know that the future of that species is in our hands, that was a really, really cool experience.
Hi. So this trip was just overall, it was so surreal, and it was just like breathtaking every moment. We were literally in Jurassic Park working with baby dinosaurs. Like the longest turtle, the shell itself was like over 6 feet tall. Like it was insane. At one point I was with George at the census, and we were holding the bag under this turtle, and we kept looking at each other, and we're like, this is the best moment of our lives. This is like, we'll never be able to do anything like this again. It was so breathtaking and so surreal and so amazing. And thank you so much for the board for letting us go on this trip. Thank you to Patel and Eriko. It was my favorite LT moment for sure, and I'll take it with me for the rest of my life.
I just want to say this is like so far from like any experience you would get as just like a tourist in Costa Rica. I'm sure, as you've heard, with like the turtles. I also got to hold like the bag when they were like laying the eggs in it, and it was amazing. There was like a time, like it was our last day in Costa Rica, and I was really sad. But it was kind of just like a moment where like I was like, oh my goodness, like this is what I want to do.
when I'm older, so it kind of like hit me. Like going into it, I wasn't totally sure, but coming out of it, I was like, this is definitely, like, it was life-changing for sure. Like, it was amazing. It was so cool. But yeah, I just want to say thank you to everybody that was involved and made it possible. And I could not have asked for better teachers to come with us. It was amazing. So yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. You know, I feel like their experience is really what makes LT LT, and the board doesn't often get an opportunity to hear directly from students. We approve field trips on the consent agenda, and all the information's in the 800-page packet, of course, but to hear it firsthand, I hope that was valuable for the board to hear. So
So valuable.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I just make a
Amazing.
quick comment?
Yeah.
Really quick. I was not part of the board that approved your trip, but I just, because I'm new, but I really just want to tell you as a former youth exchange student who went overseas when I was 16 years old for a year. I saw turtles, and I was in Australia, and here I am at the ripe age of something. I can tell you I still look back on that experience, and I still connect with the people, the adults who are now well into their 80s who gave me that opportunity. And there was another exchange student there at that time from Texas who came home and kind of became something. His name is Matthew McConaughey. And you just don't know when going overseas and having those experiences and what it's going to bring into your life. So as somebody who wasn't part of approving it, bravo, because it's life-changing and it's just awesome. I'm so glad to hear that you guys had that experience, and I hope there's more of that, because it really is fantastic.
I just want to say, and this is probably the part where I get emotional, because the teachers, thank you for putting that together, because it's not hard to sit up here and say yes to those kinds of opportunities. What's really hard is putting the opportunities together. And a trip like this stays with all of them forever. And we have a lot of teachers who do that across the board, and the difference you make for our kids is really immeasurable. So thank you. See?
So cool. That's awesome.
This is literally happening for the next 3 weeks. I can't with this. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's awesome.
You're right.
All right, that concludes my superintendent report for today.
That was a fun one. That was a good one.
It was a good one.
Yeah,
It was a
nice
long
work.
one.
I get to go right back
Thanks,
into it here.
guys. Thanks for sharing all that.
Okay, where are we in the agenda? Okay, new business. Awesome. So we have more fun coming.
Yay.
This is good. So beginning with new business, our first item is consideration of a donation agreement. Back to Dr. Waterman.
Yeah, this is pretty cool as well. So back in October, LT alum Jimmy Dunn visited LT during homecoming week and spent some time with our music students and our staff in the program. And prior to the visit, Jimmy obviously has a really strong background in music over the years. And prior to his visit, he had written the lyrics and the sheet music for a song called My Days of Gold and Blue. He wrote this song as an alma mater for LT and performed it for the students during his visit. And when the day he was here, he had told me, he's like, I'm going to go back and I'm going to work on having this professionally recorded and actually refine the lyrics, and I'll circle back to you in a couple months. And sure enough, a couple months go and he circled back to us. And so in January, he sent us the information, the music, the lyrics, and an absolutely beautiful, professionally recorded video of the song. Ultimately had it professionally recorded. So tonight, I shared this with the board several weeks ago, but tonight I'm excited to present this to the board for consideration of official adoption. And we have a short video. Jimmy couldn't be here tonight, but I do want to recognize Marty and Lorene, his brother and sister, who are here to celebrate him tonight, right? And we have a short video that includes a song that we want to play now that gives you an idea of what the song is.
I believe music has the power to inspire us, to lift us, to remind us where our hearts live, to remind us to be grateful. And I am so very grateful for my days at LT in my life. So the song is just a very little thank you to my dear LT and to my days of gold and blue.
Oh, the bell tower pulls me back to memories of you, a precious home so dear to me, my days of gold and blue. I could imagine anything I dreamed I'd be, a world of choices, all in front of me, and my friends, my lifelong friends, all the steps along the way led me where I am today. Oh, the bell tower pulls me back to memories of you, a precious home so dear to me, my days of gold and blue. My dear LT, always gold and
So awesome, very exciting that he took the time to do this, spend time with our students, and then came back to us with this. So again, I'm excited to present this for consideration at the board table. Moving forward, we would imagine that our choir groups would sing this at their concerts each year. Probably a lot of different ways we can incorporate this into our daily life here at LT. So with that.
So generous.
What a gift.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Truly. I mean, to.
Thank you guys for being here tonight.
Who'd miss it?
So well captured our spirit here. I really, really, really appreciate that. Thank you, guys. Get me all emotional now.
I know, right?
Okay, come on.
I mean, where do we
I got
go
one
after all of
graduating
this? This is wonderful.
Yeah, that's cool.
Any other comments before we make it official?
It should be official.
All right. So then, can we have a motion to approve the donation agreement and resolution as presented?
So moved.
Second. We have a roll call?
Member Dillon?
Yes.
Member Nava?
Yes.
Member Struing?
Yes.
Member Thomas?
Yes.
Member Flores?
Yes.
Member Vita Daniels?
Yes.
Member Gretsch?
Yes. Awesome.
Thank you.
And I will definitely reach out to Jimmy and let him know that it all went well tonight.
Absolutely. Was I supposed to read them?
Yes.
Thank you,
Okay.
guys.
All right, well, I'm going to read the
Go
one.
ahead and read
Should
it.
have done that
You didn't have
first.
to, but you could. I think
There
it's a
is.
nice touch.
Whereas Jimmy Dunn is a 1973 graduate of Lyons Township High School and a 1993 inductee into the school's Hall of Fame. And whereas Jimmy Dunn is the author of lyrics and the composer of music for a song titled My Days of Gold and Blue, hereafter the song. And whereas Mr. Dunn has informed the Board of Education of Lyons Township High School District 204, Cook County, Illinois, of his desire and intent to donate the song to the school district. And whereas the donation represents a gift of significance and distinction as a reflection of the significance of the school district to the lives of its students, staff, community, and alumni. And whereas Section 16.1 of the Illinois School Code 105 ILCS 516-1 authorizes the board to accept donations of personal property. And whereas the board is in possession of a donation agreement with respect to the donation attached hereto as Exhibit 1, and whereas the board desires to accept the donation pursuant to the donation agreement and officially adopt My Days of Gold and Blue as the school's alma mater, now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education of Lyons Township High School District 204, Cook County, Illinois, as follows: that the foregoing recitals are hereby incorporated by this reference. The board hereby accepts the donation, approves the donation agreement attached hereto as Exhibit 1, and authorizes the board president and board secretary to execute said agreement on behalf of the board. This resolution shall be in full force and effect immediately upon its passage and approval, which we just did.
There we go. That's a long resolution. It's a long resolution.
Thank you. Wonderful. All right.
Very good.
Well, now.
All the fun's over?
Right, I know.
No more
That was
videos.
good. That was like an
Now
hour.
we
It
just-
was fine.
Yeah.
Back to work.
Slightly less fun. It's not over. We're just gonna have slightly less fun.
Okay. Slightly.
I mean, I don't know. Poor Ed's next on the
Yeah, I
agenda.
kind of take offense to that, you know?
All right,
Worse than
well,
sus.
sorry, Ed. Our next new business item is consideration of the 2024-25 Professional Appraisal Oversight Committee recommendations. Turning it over to you.
Absolutely, Dr.
Yeah, and
Waterman, did you want to
I
start?
just want to say a couple of brief words here. I just want to point out that this is the information that I shared with the board several weeks ago. It really just represents the culmination of a year's worth of collaboration that the Professional Appraisal Oversight Committee has been doing on our professional appraisal system. So Ed's going to talk a little bit about the committee's work, and then we're fortunate to have a couple member reps from the committee here to share more on the work that they did this year.
Thank you, Dr. Waterman. As Dr. Waterman shared, our Professional Appraisal Oversight Committee is a committee that's made up of an equal number of members of our LTEA, that's our Education Association, our faculty, and our administration. This committee's primary responsibility is to periodically review our certified professional appraisal system, and this year has worked diligently to review the plan and update many significant elements of the system, certainly more than in any of the 14 years that I've been in this role, due to the number of updates and modifications that we've worked through. This plan was originally developed for implementation in the 2001-2002 school year, with the most recent significant revisions occurring in 2012 and 2016 to coincide with both the Performance Evaluation Reform Act, or PARA, as you may have heard it in previous years, and Senate Bill 7, which were significant changes to appraisal systems and evaluations in Illinois. I want to thank the members of the team who met nearly every 2 weeks throughout the school year to develop a plan that will continue to improve the quality of feedback that we provide to our faculty and staff, and provide support that we can provide, and the support that we can provide to our certified staff through our professional goal-setting model. Members of the team include Andrew Johannes, Kurt Johns, Amy Johnson, Joseph Maffey, Mary Palacios, Angie Patel, Karen Reno, Jennifer Tyrell, Micah Vall, and Christine Zeman, as well as myself. And as Dr. Waterman mentioned, we're fortunate to have both Angie Patel and Kurt Johns with us tonight. They're each going to share a brief summary of some of the changes to the system. Angie, could you start and talk about some changes to the length of the evaluation cycle for tenured staff?
Hi again, everyone. I can't believe Dr. Waterman said this would not be as fun, though.
It's just as fun.
So recommendation, as you may know, we are on a 2-year cycle, right? And we're recommending that we change to a 3-year cycle, with the year 1 being a formal evaluation or observation done by the chair or assistant chair. Second year would be a choice year, and in that second year, choice year, something to do with professional development, something to do with our PGP, right, our professional growth plan, ways in which we can then grow. And then year 3 is our unannounced observation, also again done by chair or assistant chair. And then knowing that we have so many people, right, that work here, that in the first year, you would have some sort of way to balance, write that out. And so some people may stay on a 2-year cycle in order to get it balanced, and then everyone will eventually transition into the 3-year cycle. So.
Thank you very much. That's great. And then Kurt, if you could share some information about some observations and the shift to the online evaluation system.
Absolutely. The changes that we're making in collaboration with the LTEA is in an effort to make the evaluation process as meaningful as possible and to provide staff with effective feedback in their content area to continue to help them grow professionally. Because of this, one of the substantive changes are that both the formal and the unannounced observations will be conducted by division administrators who specialize in the content area and can best support the growth as they work with their staff on a regular basis. In addition, this can help to free up our assistant principals to handle pressing issues and to support our students regularly throughout the school day. The other major change that we've looked at is piloting an evaluation system called EvaluWise for the last 2 years. We're really excited for our staff to be able to transition to this system next year. We feel like this system will end up housing all of our evaluation documents and will really kind of streamline the process between our division administrators, assistant division chairs, and our staff to just make that process a lot easier to find our documents and to be able to kind of just be a warehouse for all of the growth documents that we have for our staff. We really believe that these changes will end up making a positive difference in our staff and ultimately the achievement in our students.
Thanks, Kurt. Thanks. So at this time, we're happy to answer any questions that the board might have about the changes to our appraisal system.
I'm glad that they actually came up to explain it, because most of my questions were related to those summaries. And the only other thing I would add is with the observation process. And I appreciate that it's being done directly now with the division administrators. How many people usually sit in on an observation?
So for our non-tenured observations, those are conducted with a mix of building administrators, which would be our associates and our principal, and then division. The tenured observations would entirely be done by the division. Those are generally just one evaluator and the teacher and the students in the classroom. It's not a party, but there might be, especially for a non-tenured staff member, you would have one building administrator, say our principal, doing an unannounced observation, and then the division chair doing a formal observation. So there are multiple evaluators throughout the year that collaborate to make that final determination of a rating.
Can I ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
So is my understanding that the building administrators would still help with the non-tenured
That is correct.
evaluations?
Correct.
This is strictly for the tenured?
The building administrators would no longer be doing observations for the tenured staff members. One of the changes for the non-tenured as it relates to the building is that would be the removal of the assistant principals. Given the nature and the unpredictability of their jobs, we felt in order to provide that most effective feedback and consistency of observations, to have our associates and the principal who might have schedules that might be, it's hard to believe that they might have schedules that are a little bit easier to predict,
Right.
but certainly is a little bit more than our assistant principals, just to be able to provide that consistency and evaluation. So the building will still be involved in the non-tenured process, but as it relates to the tenured evaluations, that would be entirely shifted to our division chairs and assistant division chairs.
Okay, thanks.
Absolutely.
And then the last time you said you did this was 2016?
So in 2010, the Performance Evaluation Reform Act, or PARA, was signed into law, and there were multiple phases within it. The first one was making sure that evaluations all culminated in a rating of one of 4 categories. Previously, we had 2 ratings, so we had to make that change. Those changes went into effect in 2012. The second part of that was in 2016, which was the incorporation of student growth. growth. That was the district's full para implementation date. That was the incorporation of student growth as a significant factor of the evaluation. In between there, sandwiched in between there, was Senate Bill 7. Senate Bill 7 called for the assignment of groupings of teachers based on evaluation ratings. That was in 2013. So between para and Senate Bill 7, those were the most recent significant changes in the law as it related to evaluations. There was a recent change to school code which allowed for school districts to move to a 3-year evaluation model, which really prompted these discussions at the PAOC to determine, is this something we wanted to do? And if it was, how would we be able to do it in a way that wasn't just taking our model and stretching it out to one additional year? We've really thought long and hard about what that additional year would look like, and that is really the focus, one of our main focuses for next year, to work that out and determine what are the different choice options that Angie was talking about.
And then will there be, what is the process for you guys to evaluate how effective it is, and if there'll be enhancements or revisions to it?
Absolutely. So that is something that evaluation is written into our negotiated agreement about routine meetings that we have. Typically, those meetings are just to review process, review forms, make those updates. Anytime there have been significant changes to the system, whether it was through para or Senate Bill 7, that review takes on a little bit of a different light to see, okay, are we satisfied with those changes? Do we need to continue to do that? So that will also be a significant focus of next year as well, too. And I think into the first couple go-arounds with people on this cycle to continue to revise it. And as the state continues to implement new practices or refine their system, we will certainly be doing the same thing as well.
So, Carrie, essentially that Professional Appraisal Oversight Committee will continue to work.
Yeah.
They'll continue to meet, they'll continue to collaborate on this whole system.
And they would get feedback too, I assume, too, from like people who are being evaluated
Mhm.
about like
100%.
how it was being received, or how they were feeling about it as well.
Yep.
Okay, great.
If there's a area of concern in the teacher's evaluation, needs improvement, something along those lines, does this change how that's addressed, or can you talk a little bit about what's, and I know you obviously can't get into specifics, but generalities on how that's remediated?
Absolutely. So if we're talking tenured staff members, if a staff member receives like a needs improvement or an unsatisfactory rating, there are different elements of the plan where a staff member would go to then a single year evaluation cycle, and they would work to develop a professional support plan in collaboration with their division chair. So things like an unsatisfactory rating, those are governed by school code where it talks about a 90-day remediation period, but a needs improvement is really, there is a lot of local control with that. So as far as those go, that has not changed within that plan. We still have that professional support plan that is built in. There is also always the option if it's determined that additional observations would be beneficial. We can certainly do that. So the number of observations within our plan are minimums, but we can certainly increase the number of observations and increase the level of support that we are providing. Our model is a professional growth model, so it is designed to address deficiencies in a professional manner that is going to help that educator grow, not something that is designed to be a punitive model or look at that. Yeah.
And then just my last question, and I'm a fan of Evaluize, I use it all the time, it's pretty easy, but is there any plans for training for staff?
Absolutely. Yep. At the beginning of the next year, once everyone is on that, we will be working to develop that professional development plan to help people become acclimated to Evaluize and learn the system and work through it.
How many have we had piloted so far?
Last year, I believe we had 20. This year, we have 50, I believe. And then so we're going into that. So we do have a significant number of our staff who are already familiar with it. And we have been working with Evaluize over the past 2 years to refine that. The way that we imagined it is certainly not exactly how it is right now because we've refined that process. We've made some changes and some modifications, and they've been very supportive of that. And the Professional Appraisal Oversight Committee has been instrumental in looking and saying, hey, can we make this look different on the screen? Can we have this data, integrate into another form or work through it. And as you know from your own experience, it certainly is beneficial to be able to consolidate all of that information in one place or in linked places, as opposed to disparate documents that we may have had in previous years.
One last question, and thank you for asking, because that was on my list as well. So with taking the responsibility off of the building administrators for the, is this in any way going to have to change any job descriptions for like your division leaders or for your APs, or does everything just stay the same because it's just this one?
Yeah, I don't.
It's just the one portion of the staff.
Right. I don't imagine that it would change. I don't imagine that it would
Okay.
change for our division chairs. We could look specifically at the wording for assistant principals. But one of the things that we still want to leave open as a possibility is not necessarily removing assistant principals from the evaluation process entirely. As we design this second year that has some choice options, there may be options that include classroom walkthroughs or something where our assistant principals may be part of it. So until we determine fully that they're entirely removed, we wouldn't necessarily want to make those changes. But I don't imagine that there would be any significant portion of job descriptions that would need to be changed.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Great. I know this was a lot of work, so thank you all for putting this together and sharing it with us tonight. So can we have a motion to approve the 2024-25 Professional Appraisal Oversight Committee recommendations as presented?
So moved.
Second. We need the roll call.
Member Nava?
Yes.
Member Struing?
Yes.
Member Thomas?
Yes.
Member Alvarez stepped away. Member Beatty Daniels?
Yes.
Member Dillon?
Yes.
Member Gretsch?
Yes. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Kurt.
Thanks, Angie.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Kurt.
Have a good night.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Our final new business item is the approval of the 24-25 Board of Education meeting dates. Dr. Waterman.
Yeah, this is a real quick one, but the proposed dates for next year's board meetings are in your packet. This is an action we take each spring, either in May or June. We've stuck with the same traditional format of the first Monday of the month for the committee of the whole, unless there's a holiday on the Monday and we go to Tuesday, and then third Monday of the month for regular action, again, unless there's a holiday, so I don't think it requires any more explanation.
Pretty straightforward.
Oh, and I think one more thing, the January meeting, we made the change this year to move that to the Tuesday, even though the Monday's not a holiday, so we kept that going for next year, because that Monday we'll have an institute day, and then Tuesday is our actual first day.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
think so.
That's it.
All right. I think it's pretty straightforward. All right. Can we have a motion to approve the 24-25 Board of Education meeting dates as presented?
Moved. Second.
Great. Marilyn, would you please call the roll?
Member Struing?
Yes.
Member Thomas?
Yes.
Member Alvarez?
Yes.
Member Beatty Daniels?
Yes.
Member Dillon?
Yes.
Member Nava?
Yes.
Member Gretsch?
Yes. Thank you. All right, that concludes new business. Moving on to unfinished business action items. We'll begin with the adoption of the amended budget. Brian.
Thank you, President Gretsch. And so tonight, this is the evening in which we would ask the board to adopt the final amended FY24 budget. Again, as we've talked about, we typically don't amend the budget, but in this case, after the bond sale, we had the bond sale revenue, we had the transfers that needed to take place from the working cash fund to the capital projects fund. There were interest earnings on those as well that were transferred. So all of that is reflected here in this amended budget. Additionally, the expense that we did not know for the second bond payment of the year coming up, we had to amend for that as well. And then, of course, as we talked about the transfers. However, I will tell you there were two other changes that I made to this as I was looking at it since the budget was open. What I did was in the O&M fund, I removed $1,250,000 from the capital projects in the O&M fund. We'll set aside money in there, and at this particular point, for things that would pop up throughout the year. Right now, we're not going to need that sum of money in there, so I removed that. I also added back in $250,000 to the salaries of the O&M staff, as I noticed that those were running a little bit higher than what we had originally anticipated. But other than that, there are no other changes to the amended budget. Again, if you look through all of the information, you'll see that there is a projected about $4 million surplus in this particular budget right now. And again, a lot of that has to do with the fact that the corporate personal property replacement taxes is still over $7 million this year, coming back down from what we've talked about, but still over that historical average of about $3.5 million, almost more than 2 times that. So that being said, I'd be happy to answer any other questions. The only point I would make is that, as we talked about 2 weeks ago, when we talked about the amount of money available for the upcoming capital projects, nothing here was included in those, right? We want to go through, we want to see what actually happens in this year. But for the purposes of the discussion, if we end up with a $4 million surplus out of this, that's another $4 million of money that we could use and add to those projects, or additional projects at a later time. So, but I think we're always better to look at last year because we know those numbers, see what happens this year, and then we can revisit that conversation once this year is done. And again, we typically don't know that information probably until November. We work on an accrual basis of accounting, so our books, even though our fiscal year closes June 30, our books are still open through July and August on this fiscal year. Our auditors come in September, start doing all the work that they need to do, and then we should have some pretty solid numbers probably beginning mid to November on any surplus that we would have from this year.
Thank you.
Yeah, any additional questions? I'd be happy to answer them.
We talked a lot last time, so any other questions? No? All right, well, look at that. Can we have a motion then to approve the fiscal year 24 amended budget as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All right, Marilyn, would you please call the roll?
Member Thomas?
Yes.
Member Alvarez?
Yes.
Member Vita Daniels?
Yes.
Member Dillon?
Yes.
Member Nava?
Yes.
Member Strewing?
Yes.
Member Gretsch?
Yes. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next is consideration of approval of the second reading of the Press 114 policy updates. Ed?
Thank you very much, President Gretsch. As we discussed at the committee of the whole meeting, we do have recommendations from Press 114 as well as one unique district edit. We have removed, as indicated in the materials for this week's board meeting, we have removed policy 5125 to continue to review with district council, and we will bring that back to the Board of Education for recommendation for approval at a later time. But outside of that change, there have been no changes to the recommendation or to the policies from the committee of the whole meeting discussion, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the board might have at this time.
We had a ton of discussion a couple weeks ago. I mean, I think just we know that more is coming back our way. Anything else? Looks like, no? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can we have a motion to approve the Press 114 policy updates as presented?
So moved.
Second. Thank you. Could we please call the roll?
Member Alvarez?
Yes.
Member Vita Daniels?
Yes.
Member Dillon?
Yes.
Member Nava?
Yes.
Member Strewing?
Yes.
Member Thomas?
Yes.
Member Gretsch?
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, next we will have consideration of approval of the second reading of the fiscal year 25 capital outlay requests. Back to Brian.
Thank you, President Gretsch. And again, this is not for this current budget, this is for next year's budget, the FY25 budget. And these are items that we have been informed of through district staff that they would like to purchase and put into that FY25 budget for next year. And so nothing has changed on this list. We're still at the $2,082,000 mark of requests. The ones that you see in the blue color there, those are items that would essentially be covered by grants. And so the remainder of the items would come out of district funds. At our last meeting, I had mentioned that I would have a history as well as a breakout of where each of the dollars is being spent on these items. And so I believe it's page 154, is that right? You have that there. You have the last sort of 5 years of history there, a 5-year average, and then a percentage of those averages by the division or however they're broken out. And then in the final column on the far right-hand side, you have the requests for this year and how those break out into all of the individual divisions or offices, wherever they come from, wherever those requests originated from as well. And so you can kind of take a look at where those dollars are going into which groups. It's not surprising that there are a number of them that continually repeat over the years. One of them every now and then will jump in there, and it's because they have a unique request for a specific year. But a lot of our divisions and offices will continue to order items annually, and they stay consistent throughout this document, as you will see. So that being said, I would be happy to answer any questions on these as well.
This history is really helpful.
it is
Thank you
really
for doing
helpful.
this.
Sure, you're welcome.
There's not like a formula though that we apply specifically to something like it's you're up, your category's up, or it's your turn, or we don't do anything. Like there's not. It's just.
No, we
how
don't.
those requests.
This is, so these requests are open up to the district, usually the first week in February.
Yeah.
And then they log in through a district portal, and really anybody who is in charge of some sort of a budget has the ability to request these, request items in there. And so, again, we're asking the board to approve these. We're still, putting together next year's budget. So if there was some change that we said, look, we had to reduce all these by 10% or something along those lines, we would bring that back and let the board know that. But I don't foresee that happening at this point. I think we're going to be fine moving forward. But there is no formula that says, okay, here's for you in this year, or this group next year, that sort of thing. And so, we are able to really hear for the majority of our priority ones, because we asked them to prioritize those requests as well. Really, for the majority of our priority one requests, those are funded in here. Yeah.
Appreciate that. And looking at that exhaustive list, I've said this a few times, I continue to say it, it's like, there aren't anything, it's not generally anything crazy or like out of left field. It's very, very much necessary and, really well thought out and critical, I think, for our students' experience here to learn from. So I really appreciate it. I'm sure there's stuff there's things that don't make it on this list that would also be something that would be, we'd like to be able to help and provide for our students as well.
But also acknowledging the work that goes into finding grants for funding where possible and everything too. So that's always really appreciated.
Well, and remember too, in the effort to not bring in a budget that is a deficit spend.
Right.
This is one of the areas where we can actually maneuver a little bit along with our capital projects. So historically, that's what the district has done. We've said, look, let's fill the salaries, the benefits, the supplies, all the purchase services, all of those things. Let's see what we have left, and then let's fill that in from there, which I think is a good practice.
It is. It's a great practice. And this chart's great. Like to see that next time too.
So I'm just curious, is this en route, what percentage of this total list will get done, you think?
I think all of it.
All of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, unless there have been times when somebody will come to us, they'll put a request in, and then they'll say, they were going to order these materials in September. Maybe they found something different that they want, and so they say, well, we're going to hold off. We won't order that this year. We'll do it next year. Those kinds of things. But generally speaking, this.
You're able to do, okay.
Right.
That's awesome.
Right.
I do have some, just when I'm looking, I think this is so great, the detail, and then the information on the right is really great to read. But I'm looking at, and it's just me not understanding it, I'm confident, 98 and 99 on page 154, as well as 102, there's no dollar amount in there.
So for 98 and 99, what essentially, those are all priority twos. 98.
Right, but there's still no dollar amount, how does that, is
So-
that just because it's gonna change? Or?
No, so what happens is sometimes we will have the staff members put a request in, but they really don't know what the dollar amount
Got
is
it,
going to
okay.
be. So they kind of, they leave it blank and they say, okay, well, if this is funded, we'll do some more research into it. But again, you'll note that those are the priority twos at
Right.
this point.
So like, where does that, like, so who picks, like, when you're looking at then, let's just say, when we're looking at, like, if you go up above and
Yeah.
you've got the, I don't know, like, look at the line 83.
Okay.
It's so exact at 5216.
Get there, give me 1 second, sorry.
I was
Okay.
looking at the same page,
Yeah.
just to make it.
Yeah,
Someone's probably
the medicine storage
folding.
cabinet.
So
Go for
that's
that,
just
yeah.
really like, they really already know the price. It's pretty like hammered down.
They do, because what they've done is they've looked it up in some sort of a, purchasing catalog or something somewhere.
Okay.
And so what will ultimately happen with that as well is that's an initial price that they will give us. We will look to see in the business office if we can actually find it a little bit cheaper someplace else or something along those lines. But that's, these numbers really come from the individuals who've looked it up. They've said, yeah, okay, this is what we know the pricing is. We will see if we can get it a little bit cheaper somehow.
Yeah, so really like the expectation is you'll be less than what you're seeing here. For the
Or no more than this,
Got it, okay,
essentially.
that's, okay.
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Kathy does, yeah, she does a great job with it.
Yeah, she's gonna be busy.
Very busy.
I have just a quick question. For some of these things, is it, and pardon my ignorance, is it safe to assume that going into this budget, if this budget gets approved and you move forward with this, anything that would have to do with, I don't know, like flooring, I think I saw some of that stuff in it.
Right.
Garage doors, is that stuff that will be done during the summer so that it doesn't disrupt? Is that the plan, is
So-
that it would be
It's always the
done
goal, yeah.
Right, so
during
for.
breaks or?
Right, so for the flooring, I think you'd be referring to the flooring in the weight room. And.
Yeah, I think that's where I saw
And
it.
so, yes, and so the goal is to have that done coming up at the end of June, beginning of July, so
Got
that
it.
it'll be ready to go for next year. Now, I can tell you that when we look at capital building requests
Uh-huh.
that are more extensive, they wouldn't happen this summer. They would hit our list of potential capital projects, and then those would get moved out to the next year. We would not have time at this particular point to get bid specs together for a project for the summer. So
I see.
so it depends on the scope, the size and the scope of the project, but that one in there, we believe we can get done in July.
Okay, so those types of things, you guys would do your best to make sure that that happens outside of school time or during breaks or whatever to not disrupt.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we need to have those, any of the facilities that we have, obviously with the exception of like what we have coming up this year with the construction that's going on, we have to make some sort of a provision, right? We don't have a cafeteria at South Campus in the sense of what we did have, but we now
Right.
have a gymnasium, right? So we have to have all of our facilities operational in some form or fashion, and so
Right, right.
we wouldn't be able to take a weight room out of service for an extended period of time during the school year, so that's the goal, is to get it done in the summer.
Perfect, thank you.
Sure, you're welcome.
Any other questions? Great. Thank you so much, Brian.
Welcome.
Can we please have a motion to approve the fiscal year 25 capital outlay requests as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Great. Marilyn, do you mind?
Member Vita Daniels?
Yes.
Member Dillon?
Yes.
Member Nava?
Yes.
Member Struing?
Yes.
Member Thomas?
Yes.
Member Alvarez?
Yes.
Member Gretsch?
Yes. Great. Thank you so much. All right. Now, our next item for unfinished business is the consideration of approval for the 24-25 student fees. Scott Agerding is,
Not the fees.
Yeah.
well, we changed the agenda at the
Oh,
beginning
yeah.
of the,
Sorry,
yeah,
Fees,
sorry.
and then, yeah, we made
So you
that
get to
modification.
jump in.
never mind me.
Well, no, we're going to you.
Yes, you are.
Right.
We're
Yeah.
just,
We just
Yeah.
moved
do you
things
mind if
around
we
a
just
little
keep
bit.
it like
Gotcha.
with the change?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, so with the fees, we shared this with the board back in February, I think it was, if not mistaken. And at that particular time, we had mentioned to the board that there were some of the fees that were known at that point and some that were not. And the reason that there were some that are not is that we have an extensive list, and you can see by the list that we have here, of English novels that really that's the driver behind this, that we purchase here in the district, and then we charge the students for those based on their classes. And we, again, just so everybody's aware, even though it's sort of a fee, I guess, if you will, it's not a fee in the sense that the district is making any money on that. It's really just a pass-through. So if we buy a novel for, $4.95, we'll probably charge $5 for it, round number, but that's it. There's no intent to make any money on those types of purchases. In fact, I know that there's oftentimes when, maybe you have 2 or 3 students that come through LT and they use somebody's book from before and they don't need to buy it. So that happens as well. But again, just wanted to make that clear that even though, yes, you are paying this to the district, these fees were not really, if you will, making money on them. It's just sort of that pass-through piece. And so going from the February list, we said we would bring them back and that we would share with you what, all of the finals look like. And at this particular point, we have those because we actually are uploading student fees very soon here, and we will be actually opening up that fee payment module here. Usually we do that in the first week of June for next year. So what we have here tonight is the final list, if you will. And, we have what we show from the prior year and then this year. So you see the difference between the two of them. A few of them, most of them stay the same. There are fees on here that, we didn't have last year because now there's a new novel that has replaced an old one, so you'll see those are marked as new. And then we have a few that were up or down, depending on the actual pricing of the novel, or any of those other ones as well. And again, you do notice that we do have the fees, the standard fees on there, the student support fee of $25, the textbook fee of $75, and then the technology fee of $150. So all students pay those fees, and essentially those really kind of are true fees, assessed fees, right? But all students pay those fees, and then based on your course that you've selected or courses that you've selected, we have those listed here for you by the course and then what that fee is for those courses. So I would be happy to answer any questions on any of those items there. And this will be the final list of fees for this year. And I think in the future, I think Dr. Waterman and I talked about, instead of bringing these in February, we're probably better off to bring them in May because we have really a locked-in final number on a lot of these, and we're in good position to move forward at that point.
This is great. Again, like the level of detail to have the difference between recent years is really helpful.
And there are some repeats on there, but those are because multiple courses will use that, and so this list is by course. So, as I said, many, there may be multiple courses that use that one book, one novel, but that's why they appear on here several times,
Sure.
but under different course numbers.
Yeah.
Brian, I have 2 questions, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Again, just acclimating myself to the protocols here. Can you explain what is the summer school tuition fee, is that covering, well, can you just tell me what that's covering?
Yeah,
Like, that's not part of our normal operating budget, summer school? Is that
Well, I do have line items in the actual budget for summer school.
Okay.
But there's expense and revenue in there. So really, the expense for the summer school simply covers anything that would take place during the summer. It does not really cover anything as part of the regular academic school year.
Okay. And then my second question is, in regards to, I'm just looking at the, for the optional fees, right, for behind the wheel, for driver ed at $150 per student.
Right.
What do we do here at LT with that $150? What is that covering?
So the $150 essentially is a fee that goes for the driver's ed course, right? So if you take the driver's ed course, you have this $150 fee. That fee has been standard. We have never, since I've been here and even prior to that fee has remained constant. Many districts charge higher fees.
Oh, yeah.
For their
Yeah.
driver's ed
Yep.
part. We actually have, as part of the operating expense that covers that, what it covers essentially is we have leases with 2 local car dealerships for those cars.
Okay.
And so that goes, it doesn't cover all of it, but it goes to cover some of the
That's
expense.
pretty much where it's going, is for the fleet of vehicles.
That's correct.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep.
Any other?
I know we've talked about this before, I just want to make sure, because it's been a while. First of all, I appreciate the history of fees that you guys did back in 2020. This still stays in line with that philosophy that we're still much lower than surrounding districts, even with some of these increase in fees. Is that fair to say?
Yes, in particular, with the 3 mandatory fees, right, if you will, when you look at those, it's really $250 essentially is what it is. Now granted, you whatever courses you take, you might be paying some more for those. But with a $250 fee, I think we're still one of the lowest in the area.
And then, of course, if they can't afford to pay fees, if they're on our free and reduced, we're not charging those fees.
That's correct, yeah. Anybody who comes in and applies for a fee waiver and receives the fee waiver, of course, they aren't paying the fees. In addition to that, we'll have people who will come in and they don't qualify for the fee waiver, but they're close, and so we will work with them in terms of payment options, payment, whatever the case may be. We will certainly work with them to, get them to that point that they're paying it. But we're not saying, hey, look, you have to pay it all today. We'll work with them on that. Sure.
Thank you. I think one time, did we have a discussion, try to refresh my memory, where we talked about how we can sort of pre-notify people about like any of these extra fees that come up with, like certain things like electives, like I think some of the, sometimes like the woodworking classes and things like that, they have a lot of extra fees that can add up throughout the year. How did we end up going about getting that information out? Or was that a conversation that was held like more at a counselor level when there were choices being made for the classes?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think we see it as parents, don't we, when they're making their course selections for electives? I think we see those fees. No?
Well, when you register,
I think
Well,
the
when you
discussion-
register, you see,
Yeah, when you register, you see, I think the discussion was, is there a way we can get it into the APG?
Right.
Like well ahead of time.
yes.
Like
And-
even all
That's
these
challenging.
Yeah,
fees,
yeah.
I know we have to approve them, so I guess I'm just wondering like is there a way to be a little more forward-facing and a proactive approach? It's, again, there's nothing crazy, and I know we work with people if it gets like it, but it can add up, I guess, if you have several
Sure.
students.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like it would have to be, the thought was we wanted to put it into the handbook. Like not the handbook, but
The
the
academic
course.
program guide, yeah.
Correct. You always have the right name for it.
That's
problem-
what
But-
we talked
Yeah,
about.
we just don't have,
I'm like, I
the
know we
problem
had
with
a
that is we don't
conversation
have
about
the
this
accurate
at one
information
other
because
time.
like, for example,
Right.
right now, you guys are approving fees for next year tonight, and the academic program guide was.
I think that was what we had
printed
wanted.
last November.
We had
That's-
wanted it
yeah.
to be in that program guide.
Right.
But-
That's what we talked about, but
Right.
I want
even
to
when
go
they-
back though, because I know she's not here tonight. But Dr. Rowe also expressed a few concerns about putting the fees in the academic program guide. We don't want students like not selecting a course because
Right.
they see the fee. So our team talked about this, and there was a struggle.
Yeah, I could see both
in
ways,
including
for
that.
sure.
If you,
You-
this
did
might
you
even
guys
still
remember that
be.
conversation?
No, we've talked about that among our team, and I know I've talked with Dr. Rowe about that as well, that we don't want students to see a dollar amount and then think, I can't take the
Deterred.
class. I would rather have the conversation with the counselor when they're looking, pick whatever class you're interested in, and then if there's concerns financially, then that conversation can occur. We also obviously know when students are on fee waiver, we have notification of that, so we're able to have that conversation preemptively and make sure that they know that the courses are still available to them and that we would work with them.
That's what I was going to ask, if it can happen in those counselor sessions, although I don't think, that's still early in the semester, so I don't know that you would have, but you'd
Yeah,
probably
but
be
you have a
closer
reference,
to
right?
information, but then the counselor can have that one-on-one and explain, don't shy away, you're going to be good, or whatever the situation is.
I know they mentioned that during, larger group guidance where it's a group, they're not singling anyone out, certainly, but just reminding students that there's support available. That's mentioned during offer. It's noted in enrollment, and it's something that our weekly SST teams are keeping track of in terms of student needs and any concerns that would come up, so.
Okay.
Does the APG reference that there is a fee associated with the course? So that at least.
I think it does.
I think
I believe it does.
I was just
It
trying
just
to.
doesn't have the amount, right? The
Right.
exact amount, yeah.
Like there's an additional fee or something written in there, yeah.
I think is that usually published in the fall, right? Like the APG for the following year?
It goes to print in November
Yeah.
and then comes
Always-
out
yeah,
in
it's always
December,
ready right around
January.
Thanksgiving.
Mhm.
Right.
Okay. I'll pull up a class that I know has a fee and see what it says.
Yeah, or even some
I'm
way to
pretty sure.
address this concept in the guide right
Mhm.
away, like, please note, that there are, additional consumable fees or whatever, that however we put it. That's helpful. Great. Appreciate that we have low fees.
Yeah.
Affordable fees.
I know, thank you.
Yeah. It's really an asset.
So then, can we have a motion to approve the 24-25 student fees as presented?
So moved.
Second. Would we please call the roll?
Member Dillon?
Yes.
Member Nava?
Yes.
Member Strewing?
Yes.
Member Thomas?
Yes.
Member Alvarez?
Yes.
Member Vita Daniels?
Yes.
Member Gretsch?
Yes. Awesome. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it. You're not finished.
Won't go anywhere.
We're just getting started.
Right, well, that's probably true. It's probably very true. Our next unfinished item this evening is consideration and authorization of bid specifications for the projects related to the facility updates. Brian.
Okay, thank you, President Gretsch. Let me just get back through several hundred pages here
Right.
and get back up to where I need to be.
Yeah, quite a bit.
So I'll go ahead and get started while I'm scrolling up. We had an extensive conversation at the Committee of the Whole meeting about a recommendation for projects for the summer, beginning in the summer, really, of 2025. And so when we were looking at what was out there and based on, of course, the input and feedback that we had received from the stakeholders, the community, students, staff, we had put together some recommendations. Of course, all of the projects that'll be taking place at South Campus this year were part of those recommendations as well. And so we were putting together what we saw that we believe would be the top priorities for North Campus in the summer of 2025. And you'll recall that we had a discussion there about the available funding sources that we have. And we believe that it's reasonable to think that we'd be in the $10 to $12 million range. Again, that is based on last year's financials. So, as I mentioned earlier, there's a possibility that we would have additional funding available, at the end of this year, but we want to see what happens with that. And so the projects that we had recommended at the Committee of the Whole meeting for consideration were really mechanical projects here at North Campus, which would add air conditioning to the south and west side of the building. We also mentioned that we would be looking at renovating elevator stacks here in the building, 2 of them, one at exit 3 and one at exit 4. And then the final project we were recommending was the renovation of the existing elevator. And we believe that would probably put us with all other fees, architect fees, asbestos removal, asbestos management fees, that type of thing, that we would probably be in that range, pretty close to that $10 to $12 million cost. And so during the discussion, there were a couple of other additional questions that came up, and we did address those with what was asked for. And so on page 157, you'll note that we added a breakout of the South Campus renovation projects, and we prioritized by prioritized category. So you'll note that's in here, and it shows essentially on that next page, if you look at the top of the page, cost breakout for the South Campus 2024 projects by category, by those 5 categories, priorities that we outlined, and shows you the dollar amount and the percentage. I do have to tell you that there's a little bit of looking at these numbers, some of these could cross over into, either one, but we tried to, Ed Bright and I sat down and met and looked at, and we think we have a fairly fair assessment here in terms of where those numbers are and how much, what percentage of each of those that they belong to. Secondly, there was a question about the cost of the additional AC upgrades in the district over the last several years. And so just below that, on page 158, you'll see that those numbers are outlined there. Went back to 2020 because that really was the start of the B-Wing, project for air conditioning. And so we didn't do anything as far as that goes in 2021, but then we picked it up in 22, 23. And, of course, what we have on the table that's out there now for 24. I don't have that in there, but this is what we've done over the last really 3 years. And then we looked at I was asked to bring back the spreadsheet of projects, so that follows that immediately. Now, the last time we updated this was in 22 for the summer of 23. And so if you look at that sheet there at the top of the page in yellow, those are the projects that we actually did complete in the summer of 23. So those are actually done. If we were to update this list, we would remove those, and then we'd bring up some other priorities. And then you have in the gray area below that, and I'm kind of jumping around here a little bit, but just so you see these. In the gray area, those are some of the higher priority projects that we had come up with at that time in summer of 2022. The projects down there in the green are all noted by our facility study. Again, that was from 2019. So we have the updated facility studies from 2023, but these items would still all be in there. Nothing would have changed because we haven't really done all those. Except for, I think, some of the roofing in one of the parking lots, we would remove those because they're done at this point. And then you get to the blue section where those are just sort of a list of projects. And actually, some of those have made it into our summer of 2024 projects. And so those projects were a list of sort of generated projects from the district that, people were saying, hey, look, this would be good to do, we'd like to do this, but they weren't necessarily part of that original facility study in 2019. And then we put in there for your review the 2023 facility study. So again, that was updated to reflect any of the renovations we had done at that point through really the summer of 2022. You will note in that facility study, again, I can tell you that the pricing on that is all going to be out of line at this point. We would have to reprice all that, restructure all that, because it's not going to be accurate, really. I don't think it necessarily at this point. I would note that the air handlers that we have talked about replacing here at North Campus, the ones for the summer of 2025 project, those are air handlers from 1963. And so they're on here, they're in this document, and they are in the red that we've talked about before. And then in addition to that, you also have our the outstanding life safety survey that was done in 2013. And that was all part of this original facilities study. We do have an updated life safety survey here in March of this year, because you need to have one done every 10 years. So we had one done in March of this year, 2024, so we're a little bit later than what we wanted to be on that one. But we just received back from the architects late last week the information on that one. And so we really haven't had a chance to go through all of that completely. So we will be sharing that with the board because we're actually required to do so by the life safety guidelines. So we'll be bringing that back to the board to approve and review that. I think, Ed, if I remember from our conversation, really kind of what happened is there really weren't many new things that were added, but really the things that we've accomplished, we've removed from that list, and
that's correct.
We're kind of going
the budget numbers to reflect
right.
today's dollars as opposed to 10 years ago.
So we will have some updated items, but again, I don't anticipate many more than what were already included in this January 2023 facility study. Let's see, what else did I have here? Yeah, we did, there was a question about the estimated cost of renovating the North Campus Fieldhouse washrooms, and that came back at about $500,000 for total, so about $250,000 for each washroom there. And I did confirm with Ed that, as we have been doing with all of our washroom renovations, that includes really completely gutting the washrooms, new fixtures, renovating them completely, including the plumbing that is there as well. So it's not just we have, new toilets and new stalls and new sinks, but it's really everything. The plumbing, which is really most important in a lot of these cases anyway, because those are the areas we can always repair and replace toilets and sinks and all that sort of thing. The plumbing isn't so easy to get to when you're having to, go into the walls and that sort of thing. So that being said, we provided obviously all of this information, and be happy to answer any questions.
Probably important just to reiterate the recommendation. Or
Yeah.
To restate that.
Yeah, so again, the recommendation has not changed from really adding that additional air conditioning to the North Campus main building. Again, we would, if that project went through, about 70% of it would be completed in the summer of '25, and then another 30% roughly would be completed in the summer of '26. We would have two separate bids for that, though. So there would be a bid for the 70% work, later this year, calendar year. I got to remember my calendar year, school years, later this calendar year, and then we would have another bid for that 30% work for in the following year.
Why couldn't you bid it with that schedule to as one advertisement?
I think the problem would be getting a contractor to lock in a price on a contract that would be a year and a half out from even starting.
It's really the stopping and starting.
Right.
They would stop and then wait until the following school year was done.
Right.
So they'd be really taking a gamble, and I'm sure they put a premium on it so that they didn't lose in the end.
Yeah,
So they wouldn't
that's
know that
what I
pricing
thought.
that
Yeah.
far ahead.
The gamble for.
Yeah, that was
Right.
gonna be my question too, for.
Yeah, if we bid this in the fall, let's say November, December timeframe, we would be really a year and 6 months out from that work starting in the summer of '26. So, like Ed said, if we were to do that, they wouldn't want to lose any money, so you'd probably be paying more than potentially what the project would be worth.
Is there, I feel like though in the past with like some of the air conditioning, is there any possibility of purchasing the equipment?
So the first phase
Uh-huh.
is inclusive of all
We'll
the major
get-
equipment.
okay, so
the
we'll
last
store it.
phase would be the lower two levels, really reworking the ductwork and doing some VAV box, smaller things.
Mhm.
So it's not the big ticket stuff, that would be part of that first phase.
Because I think we did do that one year, did we not?
Correct.
That we pre-ordered, or
We did.
we paid that year's price for whatever the equipment was, we had that, and then it was the labor and the installation that we had to pay, or bid out separately. Okay, so we would be doing the same thing again here?
Well, you have all the major equipment that'll be going in the
Okay.
first phase. There's really not anything
Okay.
you could buy to kind of hang on to for that
Sure,
second phase.
it would be here on
Yes.
our facility, and then it's just a matter of hooking up or continuing on.
Right, just
Okay,
extending the ductwork
Okay.
to the other floors and doing the ceiling and lighting.
okay, that's helpful.
Yeah, the additional cooling tower would be added in the summer of '25.
That's the goal, if we
Right.
can get it on time. If not,
Right.
it'll go in the following. So.
Right, which is the major component in cooling the classrooms.
Right.
I mean, is there a way that you could, because I'm still curious about the bundling with, trying to source out to the same contractor doing the work. I think there's benefit in having that same contractor, so I'm just curious, is there a way to bid it out so that they could do
We
both,
could
like,
absolutely.
as an option,
We could absolutely do it as something, like either an alternate or additional base bid, so you can get a price and
Mhm.
see, and if it falls within the budget, and you decide to move forward, you can. And if it seems way out of line, then you have the opportunity to repackage it later. We're gonna probably design it all at once anyway, because it's
Yeah.
all integrated, so that's not really gonna be that difficult a task to do.
Okay.
And besides it falling in the budget, though, we would want to make sure that we felt
That it's appropriate.
that it was an appropriate
Yeah,
cost for that project.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Right, because then we would gauge and see what that markup or percentage incremental would be for that time difference.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
So that was the additional air conditioning piece. And then we also talked still about those restroom renovations at exits 3, which, by the way, is right around the corner over here. And then 4, in 4 is the exit where we have the main washrooms that, on the first floor here, that serve the Reber Center and all of the activities that take place there. And so I think there's 9 washrooms total in those 2 stacks, if I remember correctly. There's 5 at exit 4 and 4 here at exit 3. And this is a main stack of washrooms here for the students. They actually, these are, I think, our largest student restrooms in the facility right here. So that would be one of the recommendations there. And then the existing elevator renovation, I think that one really is a high priority for us. The elevator that we have here, we have one elevator that serves the North Campus main building. We've had issues of repairing it over the years. If you've ever ridden it, it's very slow. Granted, we keep it operating, right? And that's what we're doing. But we've certainly had some issues, and it makes it difficult when it's out of service because we have students who require it. And so then we're having to use alternate means by moving students up and down floors, which is not the best.
And
So,
you mentioned the speed. So by repairing this, does this change it to make it much faster?
I would think so, Ed, right?
Yeah, basically, we
it's
take the
really
entire
slow.
system out and just keep the shaft, and you
Oh,
put in a brand new
okay.
elevator
Right.
system.
Okay.
All the mechanical, the lift, the car, all of that would be new. So.
And then Brian, did you say, sorry to back it up for just one second, that the restroom renovation, I thought I heard you say each was coming in at about 500,000 and there were two. Is that, did I have
So
that
the
wrong?
500,000 was for restrooms that are not included in here. So the restrooms across the street in the field house
okay.
were the
So we
ones
had
that we
asked-
were
yes,
talking
yes,
about there.
yes.
Yeah,
Sorry, thank
those
you.
are currently not included in here.
Thank you. Okay, I was
Yeah.
a little confused.
Yeah.
So that's, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And, just with the elevator, we have to be upfront in saying, we will go without an elevator for, how long will it take to renovate that existing one?
We should be able to get it done in the summer.
Okay.
So,
But even during a summer, we would go without an elevator, so.
right, so if you had summer school here with folks that needed it, they wouldn't have it.
Right.
Yeah, we'd have to work around that and figure out a way.
But
It's gotta get done.
It's like but it's like a several month process for the elevator?
Yeah, hopefully we'd get it done in the
The
summer.
replacement should be able to happen in the summer months.
Okay, right. I just meant like if they're out, it's not like it's a 1 month thing. It could be up to the two.
It's probably gonna be every bit of the summer.
Okay. Okay.
So in that situation, then, when you say working around it, like, whatever the class is, you adjust it so it's
Find
not an
alternate
issue.
locations.
Yep, great, okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes.
Brian, I was curious about the cost breakout.
Yep.
The door replacements, is that price quoted from the one contractor that made a mistake on the door replacements that was lower, or
That's-
the 3.9?
Yes, that is so we have all of those items really under the accessibility and life safety upgrades. So that 3.9 million is a combination of the elevator, courtyard renovation. So this is the new elevator at South Campus. This is the courtyard renovations at South Campus, the toilet room renovations at South Campus, and then the door replacements at both campuses. And so yes, Hap Builders is the contractor, so that includes that number that they have on their.
The low number.
That's correct.
that was
That's
a
right.
mistake.
Right, we took their schedule values of
Yes.
everything and
Okay.
then applied it to the different categories, so those are
Correct.
actual numbers.
Okay.
As
Right.
close as we could.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
And this is just something I observed, and I just want to know if I was wrong or if I was seeing it. I was going through, 600 pages of documentation. I was just curious, it seemed like there was a few reports, I don't know if it was just me or if there was something different about them. I even checked the dates, and it looked like there was, we had several instances of the, it was the mechanical maybe and the electric report or something. I feel like I noted pages 309, 328, 348, 369. I'm like, are these different? Because this documentation looked like the report was the same. So I was just curious if there was something I should have, if there was a reason or some understanding that I should know about. If you look at pages, starting on, 309 was the first instance, I think, of that report.
So I could probably guess that they're broken out by building, so each building has its own report.
What's the
I
number?
thought so, but let me see, 309, maybe not, let's see, 309, 28.
You're looking at.
Yeah, 309 is the plumbing, heating, ventilation, air
For
conditioning.
North Campus,
Yep.
it says, then 328 probably will be,
Let me get to
it
328.
says North again, oh, but Vaughn, maybe that's the difference.
Yep, that's
Okay.
fine, yep, that's fine.
Okay, this
yep.
is making a lot more sense, because I'm like, they're titled the same, and I'm seeing some of the some similarities, but yeah, okay. And I guess what I was wondering too is like, on page 497, the 2022 long-range plan budgets that we talked about, is
What
that?
page are you on, Carrie? Sorry.
I'm looking at page 497
Got
of
it.
the packet.
Got it.
I just wanted to see, is that, I guess if I wanted to sort of summarize everything that we were looking at, we kind of loosely talked about, like, just, we have a lot. There's a lot of maintenance, a lot of things to attend to. Is this the best place to get that assessment? I mean, given that it's 22 prices.
It's
or
January,
it
yeah,
was based
it's
on
January
estimated.
2023 prices. That was the original list of projects we were looking for in phase one.
Right.
Is that what you're asking?
Well, yes, that was what we originally looked at phase one, but it's also inclusive of, okay, well then it's, remaining work. And then it gives everything else, though, that's not been accounted for.
Right, right,
Okay.
right. But I would also add, like, they're very broad headings, they're very broad
Right.
topics. That was just,
Right.
yeah.
And they're, again, based on 2020, probably 2022 estimates, maybe even earlier. Some of
January, yeah,
them.
January of 2023.
Right.
So about a year and a half ago.
Right, right.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily take those numbers right now as
Not at all.
accurate.
Right. As we're learning.
Right.
Right.
Mhm.
But more of the list.
Okay.
And how it's grouped together.
Okay.
Yeah, good, thanks. Thank
So
you.
with the, well, I mean, I see that you didn't provide an option with the modernization of classrooms from the bid spec.
So we talked about that, and Ed, you want to, what we really talked about was, we could carve out some dollar amount. We were talking about maybe, what, a couple of $1 million?
You could, one option would be to hold off on the toilet rooms or one of the toilet room stacks and move some of that money over to those types of projects.
Right.
Jen and I were having conversations about what those might look like. I think some of the things we were talking about was, low-hanging fruit of furniture and those kind of updates, some technology updates, but not even sure what that would look like until we kind of had those deeper conversations. But if you wanted to earmark towards that, we could do that.
Well, I mean, I was just asking because you had said that you had asked if they would do it, and it's not here.
To
so-
include, what we wanted to know was what was the additional cost to include those in the bid specs, because there's a cost to do the bid specs, and what would that additional be? Knowing that it is still relevant, they don't expire, that's what you shared last time, so that even if it doesn't get included right now, that's work that would need to be done.
Of course, and without knowing exactly what that work is, so say it was $2 million of work you wanted to earmark, that's probably about $140,000 of investment. in
Okay.
specs. Now, if it's, say it's furniture, and that's nothing, that you're not paying us to do that.
Right, right.
So and maybe it's a combination of the two of those things. But that's, we really would have to sit down and really get into it. The couple weeks was not enough.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
And then the sources of funding for this step, is this all, this means we have to go into the fund balance, correct?
That's correct.
So by 4.9 million plus 6 million.
Yeah, let me get back to that page, Michael. I think,
158.
thank you.
So for this whole project, essentially, we don't have the money to do it unless we go into the fund balance for just about the entirety of the amount. And so when you look at the total amount that you've put into air conditioning across those years from 2020, even through now with the bond, it's approximately about 20% of the fund balance that is just going towards air conditioning.
That's, that's probably accurate. Again, we were looking at $6 million right now from the fund balance. And then $4 million essentially from the operating budgets going forward. And then, like I said, we had the options to kind of move that number around a little bit and see where we would end up. So, but The number that I have down here for the air conditioning was $8.2 million was the total expense over the last, let's call it 3.5 years, I guess, if you will. Now, I think what's important to note, though, too, is that when we had, the field house, $2 million of that across the street at the field house was not just for air conditioning. There were 9 air handling units in that facility. I think those were, 1967, if I remember correctly. And we had of the 9, we had about 6.5 that were fully functioning at that point. So we needed to replace those. The biggest issue that we had in the field house prior to replacing those was heating it when it was cold, because the air handling units were not working. We kept maintaining them and doing what we could with them. So that project wasn't just about air conditioning. That was about replacing those air handling units so that we also were heating the facility as well. We had some days when it was really cold in the prior years where it was probably 62 or 63 degrees in there, and that was the best we could do.
We lived through for about 3 winters.
Yeah.
The last 3 winters at that were not great.
So, yes, we did add the air handling, replace the 9 air handling units, and they do air condition that facility now. But that wasn't the sole purpose of that, was just air conditioning. When you look back at the South Campus, B and C wings, that would be really the sole purpose for those.
Brian, to add to that, the units that you're discussing for this potential project, those are also units that are from the 60s.
Right.
That you could just put in new units and have them air conditioning ready, but not do the air conditioning portion, and that's about a $1.5 million add for the cooling tower.
For the cooling tower, yeah.
So,
Right.
if you just wanted to put those in and not air condition them right now, that's really the delta for the air conditioning piece, so to speak.
And we actually did that a few years ago at the gymnasiums here at North Campus. We had to change the air handling units there. Those were failing. They're prepared for air conditioning, but we have not air conditioned that space yet in the gymnasium, so. But we had to replace those air handling units because the old ones there were past their useful life, let's put it that way.
I mean, if we go all the way back to the May 6th discussion, I think the most important discussion the board has to have is what comfort level does the board have in terms of percentage of the fund balance that needs to remain. That's going to then dictate what amount you can allocate towards these projects, and then you can't really have that discussion until you have the first one. That's what I would recommend.
Well, I can start with that. I can just tell you that I'm not comfortable going down to the 45%. I would like to stay at the 47% because I think what we have learned along the way too, I know it's built into it, but there's always more expense coming up. So I feel like if we went down to the 45% and we had some surprises or something had changed when we sent it out to bid, we are actually setting ourselves up for overspending beyond, the 45%, which you've recommended not to go lower than that.
Right.
Am I hearing that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I even think 47% is a little aggressive, knowing that there's probably going to be some overspending from that.
Look, I'm comfortable with 47%.
Correct, but and I hear you, and I am too, but when I'm talking about it coming back, if we're going out for 10 million, okay, and then it comes back and we're at 11 million, it's really been with all the bids and how everything's going up so much.
Right.
That my concern is even if we stay at the 47 with the 10 million,
Yeah.
could that come back at 10.5? Could that come back at 11? And then we're down to 46%. So I just want to be very conservative in that regard.
Right, and I appreciate that. I like the conservativeness. That's good. But I would also say this, the discussion of how much we're actually going to spend won't take place until we actually have the bids back.
Right.
Because, so really, this discussion initially, in my mind, is about, do we want the architects to draw up the bid specs, go out to bid, and then see what the pricing is after that? We know that there's going to be a fee associated with that. So that initial fee that I've talked about in here, as far as the architect costs, going out to bid for that, are what we're going to pay. Because if we ask them to do that, we instruct them to do that, then we're going to pay that to go out to bid. The second part of the conversation comes in, I don't know if it's November or December, whenever we have the bids back. Now we can look at and say, okay, how much do we have? At that particular point, will most likely have a better handle on the fund balance, the true fund balance from the end of the '24 year, and we can revisit this discussion. So really, what I think it comes down to now is, are these projects that we would want to do at some point in the future, even if it's not next year, but sometime in the future? Because once we have the bid specifications drawn up for those, we have them drawn up. And we can utilize them again at any point in the future. If we went out to bid and let's say we said the mechanical was supposed to be $4 million and it comes back at 5.5, and we say, well, that's a little too much right now, we want to, change that project. We still have the bid specs. We can go back out at another time and do it. So to me, the conversation right now is really more about, would we do these projects at some point in the future to pay for those bid specifications? We have those, we own those. Then we look at the pricing that comes back after that. We can have that further discussion after, about what we really want to spend and how much we want to spend, once we have those pieces together.
And how we're gonna fund it.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct.
And so then hearing you saying, so like the three things that we're looking at, like the AC at the North Campus, the renovating the elevator stacks and renovation of the existing elevators, I guess I look at that big, long list, so I'm glad that you brought it back, because it's kind of scary, in my opinion, about one, how much needs to be done, and then I worry about, are we doing the right things? Do you know what I'm saying? When we're looking at, like Michael's point of, not that I don't want the rooms air conditioned, because that's not where I'm at, but how much we've already spent on it. If you're looking at 20% of what we've spent, are there other things too that maybe need to slide in there prior to that, just so that we can keep it equalized? Because if we're going to go down so low on funds, we don't have a cushion anymore. So I want to make sure that there's nothing here that, I don't know, I'm looking at it more of like a 5-10 year plan to see before we even go out to bid on anything, what does that look like? But take out the modernization of the bathrooms, take out the bonus stuff that I would call it, the sports stuff, that kind of stuff, and just look at the pure mechanicals from the roof to the tuck pointing to whatever that might be. Where do we look at for like a 5 to 10 year plan as to what we need to do before I think we go out to bid for like extras, quote unquote?
Yeah, all of that information is certainly in the facilities plan. If you look at that,
Right.
You can look at the roofing, you can look at the mechanicals in there. The parking lots are all in there. They're all diagrams. They're all diagrammed out. And of course, any one of those that is in the kind of orange or red
Right.
areas, well, those are going to be the top priorities for those particular pieces.
But like, how do we, if we're looking at a 5, maybe like that's better
If I
posed to
can
you.
offer
Yeah, I
what
just like that's.
concerns me the most, knowing
Yeah,
your
I would love that,
facilities.
thanks. You know it better than anybody.
You have some roofs at South Campus that we've been kicking the can on for
Okay.
a while, that are, 30 to 40 years old. You get 25 usually. You're able to patch them and stretch them along, but at some point, it's gonna come due. And all those roofs were done at the same time in '91.
Okay.
The entire building, so they're all coming at the
So
same
there's no
time.
staging of them, that's where I'm
They
like.
were not, so we've been slowly staging them as we can, but there are some that just keep getting pushed off. Those in my mind are something I don't want to lose sight of for you guys. It's just, and it's been brought up on the last few years, certain roofs at South to do. At this building, this mechanical system in that corner, that's the biggest concern here. It's been one for a while. Those are the oldest units in this building. So that is why that's being brought in. Now, whether you put the cooling tower in or not as part of it, you don't have to, and just do the units. You can get pricing for the cooling tower as well and make that decision later, but at least that's the one I'm afraid is gonna fail.
Okay.
And now you're stuck.
And I think that's really a key point that you've gone through, because we always think of it as air handling, as, when I'm sitting here, I'm seeing it as AC.
Right.
But really, it's more of the heating,
It's
and then
the
the
whole
AC would be a
thing, right?
bonus.
Yeah, it's kind of all tied together.
Got it.
And then the next piece would be the mechanical equipment at Vaughn, which also is original. If you look at that, most of that building's red. A lot of it's athletic space and those types of spaces, so maybe that's less critical than classroom spaces at this building. I mean, those units affect 39-something classrooms on 4 stories. It's a lot. So
Right.
that's the reason for, at least the conversations we have, why it was being brought forward.
So that's backing out then from what you're seeing as the most important, or I'm not even saying important because that's not the right wording, but the most pressing, thank you. The most pressing issues then when we're looking at it, even though the elevator is obviously you know, necessary as a health and
In
safety.
terms of things that I would be concerned about failing on you.
Right.
That those would be there, but that elevator is one as well, that does fail on you.
Right, and I mean, that's where I guess I just don't have a good handle, and maybe it's me, I don't, about, when we're looking at things that can fail, like when I'm thinking about, like, personally, like what we're gonna do to our home, like we know, like, hey, next year we need a roof. The year after, we probably need to replace the AC and the furnace. Like, we have a long-term plan going out several years as to what we wanna do each year. And I just don't know that I have enough knowledge here to say, we wanna go out to bid on this, when maybe, you know, we're not, maybe those aren't the most pressing things, maybe those are the things we wanna do. I guess that's where I'm
Generally,
struggling.
You have been doing that, at you know, $3 million or so that you
Right.
usually do in O&M, that usually goes to those things. So it's usually a roof project, a mechanical project. You've done a lot of those updates over the past decade. It's just, there's a lot of building, and
Right.
there's a lot left to do. You know, and there's a lot of other priorities you might have, too.
Right, and I
those are
look
just
at
from
3 million
functional
now,
things.
it's not where 3 million was 5 years ago.
Correct.
Do you know what I'm saying? And so
Yeah,
that's
6
concerning.
months ago.
Right, I mean, that's
Feels like it's
concerning
moving that
from that
fast, yeah.
point of, if we keep the same, you know, trajectory of the 3 million, we're gonna be able to do less and less each year. And I don't wanna be in, have the district in a position where there's so much needed to be done, and I don't know, that's what I'm struggling with, so.
From a financial perspective, we could pick off, you know, if we prioritized everything else out there, we could pick off the top 3 or 4 items. And items number 5, 6, and 7 are going to now be the top items after that.
Right.
And financially, the district, for all of these projects that are out here, obviously, we don't have funding sources for the vast majority of this. And so it really is looking at, okay, if we prioritize these other projects, we can do that, and that's fine, that's perfectly fine. But unfortunately, there is a finite dollar amount here at which we're going to be able to use. And so it's something that has to be considered as part of that discussion. Because if we're saying, look, we're 45% we're not comfortable with, we're good at 47%, well, then, like I said, we're in about the $10 million range. And so then we have to make some determination of which projects of those then become the highest priority. But as I said at the last meeting too, for even me, I look at this list and it's overwhelming. I mean, when you see the dollar amounts that are attached to it, with all of the items that, you know, we really should be considering, there's a lot of money out there that we don't have, and we're going, you know, it'll either be an extremely slow process, or, you know, some other funding source somehow, so.
Well, and I'm concerned about when you say like a very slow process, but then it's, if we're like the 3 million's now like worth 2 million, and then all of a sudden we are in a position where,
Sure.
you know, we can't afford it, that's where my concerns come from. So I don't know that, you know, that, I think that relates back then to the 45% from the fund balance. How aggressive do we want to even be right now, knowing that something could fail, and where are we left with not having those funds?
Well, and again, let's remember too, I know I said this at the last meeting. At the end of the day, even if we went to $45 million of fund balance, we still have $45 million in fund balance, right? It's not the end of the world if we had to use some of that for some sort of a mechanical failure or whatever the case may be. I get it's not ideal, but it's also money that still is available to us, and we could use it if we had to. And so I don't want anybody thinking like, well, we could have some other things happen here, and then we don't have the money to spend. We do. We still have money available to spend on it. So, but again, in the context of the discussion of saying we don't want to go beyond 45%, well, okay, then we don't go beyond it. But we still have that money available to use if we had to.
I'd like to know, I'm dying to know, as far as getting the documents, the bid specs and everything together, is it really, like, let's say we decided, we went over and we delayed and didn't get award or are not ready to start work until 2 years. Are those packets still gonna be, aren't they gonna need some updating? I mean,
Generally, it would be minor stuff.
Very minor, right?
Yeah, maybe
Okay.
updating a product or something, you know, this unit's not available anymore, it's this
Yeah.
unit, but the actual drawings, the infrastructure of how all the
Yeah.
pieces go together, generally is gonna be the same.
and as long as you guys don't go anywhere, it's a lot easier to have you guys, I mean, I'm envisioning your firm, because that's the easiest, right? We own them, but then to have them just update them. I'm just thinking.
Yeah, and you
Yeah.
guys have done that on projects in the past, where
Okay.
you've done them, you come back a few years later,
Yeah.
update a couple things and put them right back out, you're not paying that cost the second time, and it's worked fine.
Right. Yeah, because normally, I mean, usually about a year is what they don't like to see, you know, bid documents over a year old, so. And not that that would be the intention, but, okay, thank you. So are we looking, I know that there's a decision to be made, do we take a vote, or are there more
I
questions?
just want to see if there were other comments or questions from the table, so.
Yeah, I mean, I would just comment, I'm not opposed to air at North Campus. What I'm opposed to is that the scope of this project change from what we originally saw in Phase 1, with the modernization of classrooms at North Campus being a part of Phase 1. All of these things that we're talking about that we need to have and do, were already on the facilities improvement plan in red. Back when you guys originally proposed the recommendation of what this plan in Phase 1 might look like. So that's my concern and angst.
So the agenda was put together tonight with, the board has flexibility to do whatever you would like to do.
Well, I know,
in
I'm
terms
just
of-
saying, I mean, the board will do what the board's gonna do, but I'm just providing, this is
Your
my
opinion.
perspective as to why I have issues with where we're at.
But I think
Well,
that's the
yeah.
purpose of tonight is, there's enough flexibility here to where, you know, could hold off on on authorizing any bid specs. You could authorize the recommendation, you could modify that recommendation in a way that's more
Yep.
comfortable to the board, so the slate's open, I
Well,
guess is
I
what I'm
think,
trying to say.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, Michael. Like, we're gonna have a lot of hard decisions as we go through all of this, right? And so we shaved off some stuff when we move forward with the South Campus projects, and my perspective on this is that these are, you know, this was a bigger list, but now we have decisions to make, and so, you know, I look at it as prioritizing the fear of failure projects, which is what you have explained why this recommendation is here. But I get it. I understand that there's a lot that's.
Yeah, it's valid, because we did talk a lot
Yeah.
about being able to do some of those kind of
Other-
amazing learning spaces. We envisioned that here. And like, now the reality is we're looking at a list that says that we have some much bigger, dire needs that are not about those learning spaces. So that's not even.
It's disappointing.
Well, yeah.
Right, but we
so
had it
also
on the
can't-
list before.
Right.
These things were already on the list.
They were, but
It just wasn't recommended to us at that time.
But I thought it was all part of it. It was recommended, it was a both and now it has to be an either or.
I'm not gonna argue, but.
Is, I mean, but was that because, I mean, I guess, well, because the cost came in differently too for the first section, I guess. That was really what it was.
The mechanical.
And this will be part of the
And
ongoing
scope
conversation too.
change and cost change, yeah.
Yeah.
I think
I
too.
mean, those projects, I was just to say, those projects aren't going away from the conversation, but at this moment in time, with the work that we have to do and the budget that we have to spend too, because the remainder of the bond money, you know, this is like the immediate next step.
And who used the term fear of failure projects? Sorry, oh, yeah, I can't hear. I just was questioning where the term fear of failure projects came, and that just really, it does resonate, I mean.
I don't want
it's
to,
like-
I don't want to.
It sounds like doomsday.
Don't take it as that, but if
No,
you're asking me the things that should be
Yeah.
on your radar, those are the things.
And I think that's really helpful for us to have. I mean,
Absolutely.
Is where that is, and that's where, like, I guess my concern comes in, and I do agree, like, it has changed, but I think also the costs have been have far exceeded what our expectations were, so when our dream list had to come back down to,
They really
we're doing
have.
boring stuff.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, I mean-
instead of redoing your
But we're doing
kitchen,
a
you're
lot
putting a
of
roof
exciting
on.
stuff itself.
Right.
Well,
that's,
Those
and
are
that's,
excited
you're
about it.
used,
Those are
that's
excited
the world we're living
Right.
in right now.
Right.
I think we can all attest to
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
right?
right.
No.
It's
But
not
the-
sexy.
It's not, but I think it's also really obvious too that the school and the community has desires and needs that are, we have needs, and I wouldn't even call these other updates wants at this point. I mean, they're really also just kind of somewhat baseline where learning spaces are, where things are going with other schools, and for us to be able to keep up with that, that's what we're trying to talk about doing here, so, right.
And I think that, like, brings us to the question of, we have other funding sources like we talked about last time, so that is something that I think I'd like to have it be brought up into a meeting as to, you know, knowing that we're very limited here in what we can do, you know, to have that at some point in time. I mean, we have.
We do have to talk about that, absolutely.
Right, I mean, it's like the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Between the land and, you know, referendum, and, or, do you know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like,
But, I mean,
that
but we'll
is-
have
but
to
I
talk
think
about
we
it,
do need
yeah,
to talk
for
about
sure.
that, because I clearly see that we're at a point where we are out of money. You know what I mean? And that scares me for here, especially when we have assets and we have options to explore different things, if that's what the community desires.
Right.
So I would just like to say, I'd like to put that, I think, you know, I think this is a clear discussion to say that needs to be on the agenda.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree.
Absolutely.
I also feel that what Brian said about putting out for a spec, like to get, is that what you called it? Like a-
Yeah, the bid
right.
spec, you put it out there and
To get a
essentially you get
bid
the true
spec
pricing.
and have that so that we have it in our back pocket, so that we know what's coming. It doesn't mean that we're saying, hey, we're gonna do all of this right now. But some of the things, you know, that we're mentioning here, I don't know, I feel like they're big. I mean, we're in a building that's got, what do we have, 3, 4 floors here? I mean, you have students, you have even one. Let's just say we have one student, and that elevator fails. That student, now we have an ADA issue, right? That student can't get where they need, a staff member can't get where they need to be. You know, even if it's a temporary situation. And I think that's something that we have to pay mind to that, for sure. And then as far as the mechanical stuff goes, as much as, like you said, you know, we want to renovate the kitchen, but the furnace just blew.
Right.
And that's, I just think it's the unfortunate reality of the world that we're living in, and as much as we'd love to say, hey, we want to go do all of the things that our neighboring school districts are doing, and we see a lot of it. I mean, every single one of us, I think, at this table has been into all the renovations over at Oak Park and all the renovations over at Hinsdale and, you know, Naperville North and Downers North, Downers South. You look at what they've done at their outdoor, yeah, it's wonderful. But a lot of those things were done prior to what we're sitting in right now in terms of an economy, so.
And we used other vehicles of funding as well.
Exactly, yeah, exactly, so,
Went to,
That are to be discussed.
yeah.
Yeah.
Cheap, yeah.
great.
Sooner rather than later, probably.
Again, the other thing that I wanted to reiterate, which I think is still important to this conversation, is that we talked about the amended budget tonight. If we end up with a $4 million surplus from next year, from this year, well, then we have that money and we can push it out forward. So maybe we didn't do the classroom modernization piece in '26, but maybe we do it in '27, you know, as the funds are available. I think we can all agree that the elevator is an issue that we have to address. I can tell you that if you go down, and again, this is, when I look at the washrooms, yes, there's a value to renovating the actual washroom to me, and the bigger value comes in the renovation of the plumbing. If you go down in the first floor, down here, for this washroom, you look up at the ceiling, we just had a plumbing failure, and you'll notice that part of the ceiling is missing. And so, you know, then take it over to the HVAC, the mechanical, those are 1963 units. Those heat the facility as well. And what I can tell you is, we all know this, living in this climate, it's way more important to heat these facilities than it is air condition them, because you're going to spend probably 7 months, 8 months out of the year actually needing heat in them. And so, I mean, I think they're all important in their own way. I really do.
So are
I think everyone
we-
agrees on that for, you know, we know that they're very important priorities.
Are we all, after this conversation and the extensive conversation a couple of weeks ago, comfortable to have a motion to approve or have a motion to vote on bid specs?
I think
so. Nod.
Yeah,
Nod.
I think.
But what, okay, I think I want that defined a little bit more, if that's okay.
So
As
to
what?
go to, so the agenda item that we have flexibility on is to approve DLA to create bid specs for the recommended projects, so then we can see what we're even talking about dollar-wise. We're approving them to do the bid specs. That's originally what the agenda.
Right.
But not extra items on it?
No.
Just
No.
as it's
Stuff
outlined
below.
here?
Correct.
Well, but there's
That's-
flexibility in that.
That's one option, or the board could talk about, authorizing bid specs for some other combination of projects.
I would be more inclined to do a very limited bid spec. I don't want to expand it. So, you know, I mean, and I wanted to, if we can, in that motion, put out clearly exactly what we're going to go out to bid for, I think that'd be really helpful.
Okay.
If everybody's of that thought?
I agree with you. I think that the bid specs, the way that it's outlined here, until other conversations are had about revenue sources, personally, I think that the conservative approach would be bid specs based on how it's outlined right here, and nothing in addition to that at this particular point, until those other conversations can be had.
Which is what they're recommending essentially.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's the 3 bullet points here. And it says additional air conditioning, but we're talking about the mechanical units.
Right.
The
I think it's-
restroom renovations in North Campus and the existing elevator renovation. Those are the 3 areas that are the initial recommendation here for bid specs.
I'm comfortable with that.
Yep.
And you'll just get an option for the,
Bundling.
I'll get you as much flexibility as everyone knows as we can. So-
no, I mean for the
Yeah, for the
single
second
contract.
floor,
Yeah.
we can look at the air conditioning component as an option as well, just so you have all of that, you know exactly where it's going.
Okay. Yeah, so can we have a motion to approve, sorry, I have to read it the way, the motion to approve DLA and the bid specs, I don't have
Let me just right here.
in the script, sorry.
There's a motion at the end of the.
There is.
the memo.
No, I gotta, hold on.
At the end.
Sorry to throw it.
No. I knew I was gonna have to do this anyway. I've had to do this one other time, and I'm like, I'm not gonna be able to find it. There are 500
It's just that right there.
pages.
Did you say which page it was, Marilyn?
As outlined in the
159.
Okay, thank you. Can we have a motion to approve the authorization of bid specs as outlined in the recommendation?
So moved.
Second?
Marilyn, would you please?
Who seconded it?
Nava,
Thank you.
Member Nava,
yes.
Member Strewing,
Yes.
Member Thomas,
No.
Member Alvarez,
Yes.
Member Vita Daniels,
Yes.
Member Dillon,
Yes.
Member Gretsch.
Yes. All right. Thank you for all of the discussion, and I know that this is gonna just continue, and it's pulling a thread of other conversations that we all know that we're gonna have, and it's a good thing, so thank you. Thanks, Brian.
You're welcome.
Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Ed.
All right, our final unfinished item this evening is consideration and authorization of bid specifications for the softball field renovations. Also, Brian.
Yes. Thank you, President Gretsch. So, we also talked about this at our Committee of the Whole meeting. Give me just a second, I'm getting to the page here. And as you recall, we were the recipients of a very generous $2 million donation for the renovation of the girls varsity softball field. And so really what we're looking for here is that same authority tonight for the board to move forward with, again, creation of bid specifications for the renovation of the girls' varsity softball field. Again, right now, we know that we have the $2 million in the grant money, essentially, a donation money, and so that's really where we'd be at the starting point of, in terms of, how much we think this project will cost. Of course, there will be architect fees involved, as we know. I don't believe that there will be any asbestos removal fees involved with this one, thankfully. So that's really what we'd be looking forward, or asking the board to do, is to approve the creation of those bid specifications tonight as well.
And as we talked about on May 6th, this would also allow us to start to talk about, to the village, to begin talking with the village about this, because we know that's a months-long process.
Yeah, we know that it's going to take some time with them.
And I know I'm gonna ask probably a fairly impossible question, but within the bid specs, are we drawing it up with the understanding that where our financial status is right now and trying to keep within that 2 million, and or does that require us to have some, like, we really want this, if that number came in, or are we feeling pretty confident with it?
You're exactly correct. We have looked at a number of items. We've worked with DLA to sort of cost those out and say, okay, this fits within our, the budget that we have here. And so there aren't things on there that are, we're not gonna have a bid spec, we don't think anyway, that, or a spec that's gonna come back at $3.5 million. We've priced out what we think is appropriate based on the dollars that we have available to us.
And again, I think it's just continued noteworthy for us to be extremely grateful for that donor. That was just wonderful.
Fabulous donation, for sure.
They need to continue to be recognized throughout this process.
Agree.
Thank you.
Sure, you're welcome.
Is this bid spec strictly for the construction of the stadium? Can we call it a stadium or field, or
The field,
whatever
yeah.
we want to call it, for
Sure.
the field itself?
Sure.
Or would it include other things, like Brian, you mentioned having to speak with the village quite a bit, right? Or, I know we talk kind of off record, like, just with where things are located over there? I mean, is all of that, that's all
part of
under
it, yeah.
this
We're
umbrella?
looking at potentially changing the orientation of the field. We're looking at turf for that field. There will be drainage issues. Those are the issues that we're gonna have to deal with the village on, for the most part.
Okay.
Because I think MWRD will be involved in that.
That'll be part of it. The other piece would be bleachers, press box, if those are going in.
Right.
The neighbors are certainly going to have some comments about that.
Right.
And so that may or may not be allowed or permitted.
Accessibility of the field will also be part of that?
Correct.
That's right.
Part of pathway there as well.
Netting,
Part of it.
fencing,
That's good.
dugouts, yeah.
Yeah, the orientation of the field, the location of the field would change, would actually bring it closer in terms of accessibility. So, but we do have a plan for an accessible path to get there, that sort of thing. So yes, all of those things be
So,
included in there.
those are all things that, obviously, those are conversations that would probably have a more appropriate time and place, but just to kind of throw this out there, if the bid spec is going to include some of those things, we're talking about, right, making it more accessible and changing locations and drainage and those kinds of things, is there a possibility that then we, as the school, are looking at absorbing, like Tim said, other costs? Because relocating, now you're talking about interfering with other things that are already at the other end, right? We're interfering with cross-country's course. We're interfering with possibly track, right? Track and field, they've got things down there. So at what point does that $2 million donation create this awesome facility, which is, don't get me wrong, it's fantastic, and I think that it's gonna be a really, really great thing. But at what point are we then kind of digging a hole for our budget, like for the school, to relocate some of those other things that have to be also considered, right? The big one that comes to mind is cross-country, right? We're talking 300-400 kids that run here. And by moving, you're talking about changing, I think we're one of only a handful of schools that even still have a cross-country course on campus. that would potentially change. So now, I just want to throw that out there for everybody
No,
on the
it's
board to
important.
just be kind of, cognizant of that there's a potential ripple effect there that we have to, as we talk about all these other dollar amounts, that there's other, I think, other athletic.
Yeah, Paul, in terms of
Impact.
relationship to the field, those are conversations we've had with the athletic department. The huge advantage of the current location is a cost savings based upon the detention. You want to talk more about that, Ed?
Yeah, so the location it is in right now. Without getting too detailed, the way stormwater flows off your site goes in two different directions.
Yep.
One direction, it's already kind of built in, it's pretty easy to connect to. The locations that it's at now would require about $500,000 more of infrastructure to do it in. So by relocating it a little closer to the building, more towards the northeast side, we're able to take advantage of what's already there and be able to save that, which then
Gotcha.
allows for some of these other things, bleachers and that kind of thing, to potentially be included in the project.
Okay.
And I don't believe that anything from cross-country is affected by this.
It wouldn't be?
No, the area that would be affected would be a track and field, I think the discus, right?
Throwing?
Shot put, discus, yeah.
Shot put and discus.
That's
And
what
so-
I had in my head, right? So as I'm kind of like picturing this and listening to as you're relocating, I mean, in my head, I'm thinking, but wait a second, you've got the throwing events down there, and then I'm picturing, oh my God, because I've run a couple of those 5Ks, it's been a minute, right? But running that track and looking at the way that their route goes, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, it's gonna land like right smack dab in the middle of it, right?
So.
But it won't.
No, not to my knowledge, it's not going to affect, and again, John Grunke, the athletic director, has also reviewed this as well and is comfortable with it. So I don't think there's any effect on the cross-country track. I think it's gonna be the shot put, the discus, I think are the two that we have to relocate. And they're not terribly expensive to relocate,
Right, okay.
so.
And it won't put
Thank you.
anybody, like, it won't put the students in a place where they can't participate. They'll be able to still do all this. It's not gonna interrupt that.
Yeah, no, yeah.
I just, I throw this out there just so that we can kind of plant a seed for discussion.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't that long ago, in the big scheme of things, right? I mean, this building's been here since the late 1800s. But it wasn't that long ago that we built a pool at South Campus, right? And there are things that really should have been done with that pool that were not done because the people involved with the pool weren't consulted. And there was a field house that was built, and the people that were involved in using that field house weren't consulted. I'm talking about coaches and, right? And so I'm just kind of just throwing it out there that I think that it would be advantageous to not only talk with Mr. Grunke, but to talk with the coaches who are involved in these sports, right? Talk with your softball coaching staff and your track coaches and your cross-country coaches so that there isn't another one of those situations. And not that I'll just use the pool because it's what I know, right? So that you don't end up with this beautiful pool that is, I mean, oh my goodness. I mean, it's just, there's so much I could say, but I'll just leave it at the fact that it was like 80% done, right? And that other 20% that would have been a game changer, you talk about a revenue generator that we could have had here at this school and in this community, we don't have. Because it doesn't have, you got a bulkhead in there, but you can't really move the bulkhead and make it a true 50-meter pool. So it's useless. And we have 6 lanes instead of 8, and it goes into a parking lot at a campus where 75% of the kids don't drive, right? And we could have had stands on both sides, and I'm just saying that when you look at things like that, a field house where you can have indoor track meets, but you can't have the bleachers out while you do that. So I just encourage, I encourage there to be some good conversations with the people who will be using it on a daily basis so that they can really have something, and your background is in the sport, so, I just think that it would really be advantageous to make sure that if we're putting this out for specs, that all of those things are considered, and moving things like throwing events may not be a big deal on the surface, but if you really talk to the coaches and the athletes and the people who are going to be using it and impacted by it, it might be a bigger deal than what we might see sitting here at this table, because I was never a thrower. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I know from the beginning of this, not just the softball project, but from all of the facility stuff, is I have valued feedback and focus groups and surveys more than anything.
Yeah.
With the softball project, the softball coaches have been a part of that. There's always those decisions you have to weigh, though, because
Of course.
you know, there is no, I will say this, there's no doubt that this might be an inconvenience to move shot put and discus. It could be, right? But we also had to weigh that against the $500,000 cost of savings that we're going to.
100%.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
We absolutely value feedback and input. It's the most important part of what we do.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? I think that's really helpful.
Sure.
Thank you. All right, can we have a motion to approve the consideration and authorization of bid specifications for the softball field renovations as presented?
Second.
Can we call the roll, please?
Member Struing,
Yes.
Member Thomas,
Yes.
Member Alvarez,
Yes.
Member Vita Daniels,
Yes.
Member Dillon,
Yes.
Member Nava,
Yes.
Member Gratch.
Yes. Great. Thank you. That concludes our unfinished business for this evening. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ed.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
All right, we've now reached consent agenda portion of our meeting, and our consent agenda includes the following items: the payment of bills and financial statements for LTHS and LADC for the month of April 2024. Human resources items for LTHS and LADC, including summer extended contracts and stipend committee recommendations. The 2024 unofficial list of graduates. Review and approval of the meeting minutes, open and closed sessions, overnight student travel, and donations. Can we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented, please?
So moved.
Second.
Marilyn, would you please call the roll?
Member Thomas,
Yes.
Member Alvarez,
Yes.
Member Vita Daniels.
Yes.
Member Dillon,
Yes.
Member Nava,
Yes.
Member Struing,
Yes.
Member Gratch.
Yes. All right, and now our final agenda item is the second opportunity for audience members to give comments or feedback to the Board of Education. Marilyn, nope, we don't have anybody signed up. All right, then, with that, may I please have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
All right, thank you, everybody. Our meeting's adjourned.
Have a good night. Have a good week.
Yeah.
You got like 2 minutes.